You're listening to a 4x4 Radio Network podcast.
This month's Centresteer podcast is sponsored by Commonwealth Classics. Commonwealth Classics is a direct importer of classic vehicles from Europe and South America and has a rotating collection of rare and unique Land Rovers. Their showroom is located in Virginia, just 45 minutes from Washington, D.C. Visit www.cwclassics.com to view their current inventory of classic vehicles. The Centresteer Podcast, a Land Rover podcast by Land Rover owners. Welcome to the Centresteer Podcast, the first Land Rover podcast on the planet. Centresteer is a podcast by, for, and about Land Rover owners. This is show number 74 for May 2019. We're recording on May 27th, and it's Memorial Day here in the United States, a day to remember and thank members of the U.S. military who gave their lives to preserve, protect, and defend our freedoms. And as this podcast reaches outside the U.S., we'd like to extend that thank you to our NATO allies also. I am your host, John Costage. Joining me over Skype are Morgan, Harold, and Dixon. Mike is in Europe, checking out the automotive scene there. I saw some pictures. I think he was in Estonia and Russia and Italy, I think. He was also in the UK. He did shake hands or at least talk to Ed China for a hot minute. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen. Good day. Hello.
Our guest this month is Charles Bell, founder and president of the Gulf Coast Land Rover Club. I met with him at the San Rover Rally and talked with him from within Mr. Bill Burke's RV.
No relation to Graham and Louisa, I take it?
No, not to my knowledge. Bill's dogs had to stay inside with us, and they were especially active while I talked to Charles. You'll get all that information, plus how the Gulf Coast Rover Club came into being and how addicted Charles has become later in the podcast. Also, later in the podcast, we're going to have Greg and Eric from the Northern California Land Rover Club talking about the very first inaugural and hopefully annual Rovicon event in Northern California. Thank you for your comments, follows, likes on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and also via email. And thanks to everyone for their support, especially through Patreon and donations and merchandise sales. To directly support the show, visit our website. You can purchase a t-shirt, sticker, and there's also a link to our Patreon page where you can find all the Patreon support details. The overlanding Austrians, Sandra and Bernhard, are back in the U.S., and hopefully they'll be passing through Western Pennsylvania soon. I did invite them to the U.S. I got one email from them. They sent me an email. It was it's actually pretty cool. I wasn't planning on reading it to you, but because there's a picture attached to it. It says, forward of a photo, "Hi, John. Can you guess which house you can see of this picture made by food?" Harold might get this. It's pieces of bread with, looks like maybe chicken salad in between, and the pieces of bread are cantilevered. Maybe Harold went on mute.
No, I'm here. I'm not getting where you're going.
Falling water. It looks like falling water.
Oh, okay.
So they sent me that, and
see, now if it was leaking and parts of the chicken were falling off into the river below, then yeah, okay, then I'd get it.
Probably be. They are back in the U.S. and they're certainly welcome here. And I know from talking to Greg and Eric over in Northern California, they also extended an invitation to them if they need assistance or want to stay with somebody in Northern California.
Well, apparently, if they're into FLW architecture, I guess they need to come to Western PA then, don't they? Yes. There's really half a dozen Wright and or Wright inspired homes within an hour of me.
Yeah. And they just brought a new one, too.
That's one of the half dozen, yeah.
And thanks to David for pointing out an error that I made in talking about a Range Rover at ROAV at Wintergreen. I will read you his email. I was listening.
You made an error? Really?
It only happens once a year, and this is the one for the year. So this is I've gotten it out of the way now.
That you'll admit to.
So David says, I was listening to number 73, and did you say two-door Range Rover Classic Santana? Because I'm from Spain, living in California for almost 20 years, and never saw one of those back home. I own a Santana Series 3 too. Probably I misheard. I was driving. Congrats on the podcast, by the way. It's nice to hear from other addicts. David, DC proven in most LR forums. So yes, I did misspeak. I apologize. I was thinking...
Did Santana ever make a Range Rover?
They did not. That was my because
Gotcha.
Right. That was the mistake because the guy said it came from Spain, and I just immediately thought Santana because of the Spain thing. And it was a two-door.
You made the leap. Yeah. Okay.
And there are events coming up. Events past, thought worth mentioning relatively quickly here. The Land Rover Legends show just happened while we're recording this, and the cool thing to point out is the winner of the most original vehicle award was none other than the Trans Africa truck by our own Martin Port, who has been on the show.
Cool.
Yeah, congratulations to him and the truck.
The OVLR birthday party is coming up June 22nd through the 24th. Right, Dixon?
That's correct.
There you go. As I mentioned earlier, and you'll hear all about it later, is the Rovicon, which is the first annual Rovicon. It's June 28th through the 30th, 2019. It's in the Sierra Mountains on the famous Rubicon Trail. And they were discussing, when they talk about the Rovicon, they had not had the website up and ready to go, but since we talked to them and before the show here, they do have their website ready, and it is rovicon.org. That's ROVICON.org. No registration, right, Harold?
I think they wanted a heads up, a head count of some sort, but you don't have to pay anything in advance.
That's it. There's no cost, but yeah, they would like to register so they can have a T-shirt.
I think they would appreciate an RSVP.
Yes, I just pulled up the website while I was saying that. Yeah, there's no cost for the event itself. I think there's cost for if you want to stay in certain places, depending on where you're staying.
Just the cost of getting there and getting home.
Yes.
Which can often be a bigger deal.
And coming up on July 20th is the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix British Car Day. If you want to come and hang out in the Pittsburgh area with the podcast, we will be there. You're certainly welcome to do it. Maybe Morgan, you want to come back down again? Dixon, you're invited if you want to come on down and go to British Car Day with us.
That's possible. We'll have to see what's going on at the time.
We'll be congregated under the ridiculous awning once again.
It's very tempting. It was fun last year.
I did read through you get a letter in the mail to forms that you can, sign up, send your money in so you can get on the grounds. And I did read through it this year to see if no Land Rovers, no outrageously large awnings, so they at least didn't say
any devices projecting from the vehicle must not occupy the footprint of more than one vehicle.
There was still plenty of space on the field.
Yeah. Oh, there was, especially where we were.
Plenty enough room to sneak smart cars into the Land Rover area.
There was also an event planned near our area for September, the Eastern National Land Rover Festival, and unfortunately it has been postponed indefinitely. There was a posting on Facebook about it, so if you want all the details about that, look up the Eastern National Land Rover Festival on Facebook and give you the reasons why.
So we were going to tell you there was an event coming up, but apparently not, huh?
That is correct, sir. All right, let's get into the news. And it was a particularly busy month in Land Rover world. We'll start with, as we usually do, with business stuff and sales. JLR April sales declined by 13%. So JLR reported a 13.3% drop in total retail sales at 39,185 units last month, year-on-year basis. Tata Motors' own Land Rover sales, so just the Land Rover, stood at over 22,000 units in April, down 13% from April of last year. Jaguar sales were almost 11,500 units. That's down 13.7%. In the UK, there was a rise, though, of 12.1%. Oh, a record rise. North America, the car maker witnessed an increase of almost 10%. These gains, though, were offset by weak demand as the car maker recorded a drop of 45.7% in China. Wow. Okay. I read that before, but yeah. I mean, I certainly read that earlier, but when you say it out loud, like, wow, that's a big number. Finally, retail sales for Britain's car maker fell 22.3% and 5% in overseas markets and Europe, respectively. JLR has recorded an annual loss of £3.6 billion by Chief Executive Ralph Speth says an ongoing cost-saving program will transform it into a leaner and fitter company for the future. The pre-tax loss for the financial year that ended in March reflected a £3.1 billion write-down of the value of the business in the final quarter of last year. And here come the cops to check up on the finances.
That's the ambulance to haul off the remains of the company.
The firm's annual revenue of £24.2 billion was down £1.2 billion year on year. Without the one-off write-down, JLR's annual pre-tax loss was £358 million, while annual sales increased by 8.4% in the UK and 8% in North America. The sharp decline in China meant that its overall sales, nearly 600,000 vehicles, was a year-on-year decline of 5.8%. JLR did post a £269 million pre-tax profit in the final quarter of the financial year, covering January to March of this year, although this was reduced to £120 million after redundancy costs, part of its ongoing transformation program, were taken into account. The firm noted that it has retained £3.8 billion of cash. So out of all of that, there were a number of articles where different outlets had talked to Ralph Speth. So I'm going to read a couple of those and pull some things out of some of those articles. And this one first, there was a hub of activity that around this, which is not directly related to the problems, but indirectly, Indian conglomerate Tata has denied it is poised to sell JLR to French owner of Peugeot. The troubled British car maker has seen sales slide. We just talked about that. Peugeot has made no secret, its owner, PSA, has made no secret of its desire to make acquisitions. Press Association reported that a leaked, quote, post-sale integration document, unquote, had been circulated at the two companies during the outlining of benefits of the integration. Tata denied the report, stating, as a matter of policy, we do not comment on media speculation, but we can confirm there is no truth to these rumors, unquote. A PSA spokesperson said the company had no knowledge of the integration document, but added that it was open to buying up other companies, quote, if an opportunity comes, unquote.
Seems to me like these denials are becoming more and more Shakespearean.
I find it fascinating that, talking with various people, that the idea of Peugeot getting Land Rover was actually received very positively, which I found surprising.
Peugeot can do some great things with product, and then they can turn around and do a quick about face and just put out some absolute crap for a number of years. So it's a real up and down sort of thing. But on the other hand, PSA, the parent company, has a lot more size than Tata does. So from a financial strength standpoint, it might be a better way to go. More economy of scale and more room to lose money without it being disastrous.
Wouldn't also, since it's a European-based company, the PSA would be more plugged into the economies of scale that where Land Rover products are generally being made. And I know they're not all being made in Europe, but it seems it would be closer to that supply chain.
Just more economy of scale in general. And yes, because they are bigger and they buy product for a lot of different things, buy parts for a lot of different product, there is the supply chain economy definitely. Plus, they're in the EC, so it's a way to side skirt some of the Brexit issues as well.
It would be interesting to see what the merger of French and Lucas Electrics would bring us, though.
Well, there's no Lucas Electric left in anything Land Rover, so it's not a big deal.
British Electrics.
You still have, of course, the French weren't exactly immune from that. They had the Paris Rhone and some of those that were spotty anyway.
True.
In another article, I like this Ralph Speth quote, adding to the turmoil, the company is reportedly being targeted for takeover by the PSA group. Speth has said he has not spoken with PSA boss Carlos Tavares about any transaction and cannot confirm whether there has been any discussions between Tata and PSA. Quote, car companies always talk about technical things or whatever. We are talking to everybody. I definitely cannot speak for Tata. I'm a normal employee in this empire, and therefore I cannot make a statement, unquote.
Oh, yeah. You're like Sergeant Schultz. You know nothing that's going on.
He's a normal employee. Right.
Yeah. I see nothing. I hear nothing. Just like I said before, the denials are becoming more frequent, more emphatic. It's becoming Shakespearean, as in the lady doth protest too much.
Very true.
Moving on to the China market. JLR is battling a saturated market in China as the automaker attempts to steady a struggling sales operation that triggered a $4 billion write-down in February, Speth said. Automakers are fighting for volume as the world's biggest automotive market posted its first annual slide in demand in more than 2 decades. Speth said in an interview, one of these interviews he was giving, company is overhauling its Chinese dealer network because it provides insufficient exposure to the country's biggest cities. JLR's China sales fell more than a third in the 9 months through December and have continued to slide, declining 46% last month, while the country's car retail market as a whole shrank 17%. And JLR's business in China has been hit because of persistent woes with reliability and dependability. We've talked about that before. The thing I'm starting to see here is it's not just JLR having problems. It looks like it's starting to inch into other car companies. That's, I think, the word they're trying to get out here. China's having a downturn for the first time in 2 decades. And and Land Rover sounds like they were the first ones pretty much impacted.
No, I think China's finally reached market saturation.
That and the trade war with the United States isn't helping things with the Buy China policies that the government's been thumping on the population. It's going to have a splashover effect on European product, too.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Another article from Washington Post that came from Bloomberg, long one about Land Rover recovering. We've talked about all this stuff before, but just one paragraph relevant to this conversation. Let's not forget the industry-wide challenges. Demand for cars is either plateauing or slowing, while Brexit and the trade war loom. In India, the commercial vehicle cycle looks to be peaking and customers aren't buying cars. Tata Motors' truck business could suffer more under new rules in areas such as freight capacity and emissions. It sounds like there's this general downturn, even though the United States and Europe seem to be still holding on car sales. Well, maybe Land Rover specific. China, certainly, the large car market now has a downturn. Ford here in the U.S. has laid off, 7,000 workers, or is going to lay off 7,000 workers. General Motors has closed a couple plants, one not far from us here in Pittsburgh. So it seems like Land Rover may have been maybe the most impacted, at least initially, because they've taken such a big hit since they are fairly small and in the luxury market.
Well, also that they're in expansion mode and running into headwinds now, which isn't going to help.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's a good point.
Right.
And they're clearly finding problems with their dealer network. We've discussed previously that they were trying to retrain their sales staff, but this is also the first time I've seen it mentioned that they don't have very good exposure in the biggest cities, which is obviously not a good situation.
No. I think I saw somewhere one of the comments, I don't know if you saw that, Morgan, where someone was complaining about the customer experience in China. Not sure what that meant, but I think we'd heard that before too. That reflects back on the retraining that was mentioned. So further on in one of the other discussions with Mr. Speth, one is from Auto News in Europe. Again, the usual discussion they had with him about where Land Rover is and where it's going and how it's going to get there. But the last 3 questions are relevant to one of our interests, the new Defender. So the new Defender is due in 2020, but there are reports that preparations for the production launch are running into difficulties. Is that true? Speth, we were aware that the continuation of the Defender would not be an easy launch. Every vehicle launch is difficult, but a successor to an icon faces an exceptionally high bar. And end quote.
I have a hard time with him calling it the continuation, because it's not continuing anything. It's a new model inspired by the old one, but it is certainly not a continuation.
Question, would it have made more sense to bring it out much earlier? Speth, certainly, I would have preferred to launch a new one immediately and seamlessly, but a new Defender has to be geared to its community of fans. It is better to take a hiatus so the new product has the right substance, specifications, and characteristics. That's what it will have.
That's a lot of excuses.
Yeah, it's a lot of excuses for not getting the new product ready in time.
Yeah, they really should have had that the next year. It should have been seamless. It really should have been. But.
Yeah, either keep making it for an extra year at a loss just because, or and get your development team in gear half a decade sooner. They had to have seen this coming. I'm sure by 2010 they had to have seen that they needed something different.
But headwinds, Harold, headwinds.
Yeah, okay, whatever. By the way, turning into a headwind is the best way to get an airplane off the ground.
And the best way to stop a sailing ship.
Well, actually, the best way to stop a sailing ship is an iceberg, but anyway.
And a final question, what will the volume be for the first year? Speth, we will see strong demand. Really? I hope.
Okay. Well, you certainly don't hope for weak demand. I mean, come on.
I am definitely there's a lot of steadfastness in their responses of late as to whether the product is going to have strong uptake? Is it going to have the features that everybody requires?
Jerry's at his little table handing out the Kool-Aid, and everybody's lining up for it.
Exactly.
Well, if you're going to make 1,000 of them, you're going to have strong demand. If you're going to make 1 million of them, demand might be weak. So it's certainly subject to interpretation, whichever way you want to go. They have hedged quite well.
They have.
But they've taken a long time. It should have been a seamless switch over to the new model.
I don't mind them taking a long time. They just started too late.
This delay period, or where there's nothing, others are starting to encroach upon that territory. And to wit, there is was an article about Jeep becoming serious threat to Land Rover.
Well, yeah, because they've stayed true to what they've been doing, and they've never wavered. I mean, they've come out with some of their vehicles that I think are a little bit lame, but they still have the Wrangler and the new Gladiator truck and all the stuff that's reminiscent of their line. And they've done the evolution and the heritage stuff and still having modern platforms. They've done all the things that Land Rover says it's doing, but Jeep is actually doing it.
Well, the interesting part is that where Jeep is actually getting a strong foothold is with all the new small vehicles in Europe. Right. So the Renegade, the Compass.
It's introducing new people to the brand, which is fine. That's what you need to do, and that's what Land Rover says they're trying to do. But the thing is, they still have their core product because they still understand where they came from and what they stand for.
Yeah. So in this article, Jeep becoming serious threat to Land Rover. If you thought Fiat's takeover of Chrysler in 2011 only meant U.S. buyers would get easier access to European brands owned by the Italian car maker, then you may not have been aware that the doors between the U.S. and Europe can swing both ways. As Autocar reports, Jeep sales in Europe have been skyrocketing, with demand in the region shooting up 56% last year. In fact, Jeep has been doing so well that it was positioning itself to overtake Europe's most famous off-roading brand, Land Rover. Jeep did actually beat Land Rover at the sales game last year, with a storied American off-roader mark moving 166,500 vehicles in 2018, while Britain's equally celebrated and capable automaker moved just 150,000 units. So that's 16,500 difference. Land Rover still was a clear winner, given that the average Rover sells for over 54,000 pounds, while Jeep gets an average of 27,000 pounds. Some of that has to do with the fact that Europe's most popular Jeeps aren't the pricier Wranglers, Cherokees, and Grand Cherokees, which accounted for 20,000 sales last year. No, the bulk of Jeep's European sales went to the Renegade and the Compass, the former of which was designed with the European market in mind and is built in Italy.
Jeep has done a good job with creating entry-level product to get people into the brand, which is something Land Rover tried with the Freelander and didn't get it right.
Yeah, and well, they're finally getting it right with the Evoque, but that's a Range Rover product, not
an entry-level expensive brand. Yeah, it's not exactly the same thing.
Exactly.
But I think the Disco Sport is the real successor to the Freelander and is the model that...
sure, but it's not entry-level. I mean, it may be the cheapest. It's entry into Land Rover, but it's not really an entry-level product because it's still, even though it's the cheapest Land Rover, it's still a medium-priced vehicle. There's no cheap way to come out of a Land Rover dealer anymore.
Land Rover's strategic vision is to be a luxury brand, while Jeep is at the bottom.
Well, Jeep is
affordable.
Well, they start at the bottom and work their way into the premium. You can spend $100,000 on a Jeep if you want to. There are things you can get that are actually pretty phenomenal in that price bracket, but you don't have to, and you can get a lot of truck for low coin. And yes, I am seeming to be shilling for Jeep these days, but it's because they're producing products I like.
And that's fine. Goes to Dixon's point of that Land Rover has positioned itself as the luxury premium brand, and they are.
And when you do that, you exclude a lot of potential customers, and they've gone after their niche, and it's a smaller niche than Jeep is using.
But Land Rover is also smaller than Jeep, and so they didn't have the capability, just as they did not have the capability to evolve the Defender as they should have. They didn't have the capability to have have 30 models that they could then have it all the different price points. They didn't have the capability. I think they went for the right market. They went for the premium market where there's more money per vehicle to be made, as is evidenced by the sales comparison to Jeep, and they did the right thing. And they're now trying to move as they can slowly, unfortunately, into having a larger number of vehicles, including ones that are cheaper that you can get into.
Again, strategic decision. Going up market for a small company was a great thing to do, but as soon as you want to become a volume producer, are there that many rich people out there to continue to maintain that type of vision?
Right, that's the thing. The more expensive the product, the fewer of them you're going to sell. And, at the high end with companies like Rolls-Royce, it seems to work. But, it's a very interesting mathematical discussion about how high you can go versus not making enough of them to keep you alive.
Yeah. I think the only thing I'll add to this is that we're now seeing Jeep finally add a pickup truck to their lineup officially. What is the new Jeep one?
The Gladiator.
The Gladiator. Thank you.
By the way, the launch edition of the Gladiator sold out in one day.
Exactly. It's a very popular model, and they're moving into the most popular lineup in the U.S. is pickup trucks, or most popular models overall.
Hence Ford building nothing but trucks these days.
Right. And we still have yet to see whether Land Rover will do a pickup truck version of the Defender.
I don't know if they have enough sales globally to support it. Again, that upmarket move requires different decisions product-wise. And unfortunately, I think the move upmarket like they've done requires them to turn their back on where they've come from.
Oh, I agree. I just think that in their price point, there's already a huge number of pickup truck sales in the U.S.
Yeah,
it's worth mentioning, and we'll get back to Land Rover, more Defender news in just a few minutes, but it is worth mentioning that JLR staff have been offered early retirement as workforce at Castle Bromwich fear for the future. In terms of redundancy plans, JLR spokeswoman added, quote, "As is customary when a vehicle comes to the end of production, we will be offering a limited VR program to employees of the Castle Bromwich plants." January, JLR announced it is to cut 4,500 of its workforce as part of its cost-saving operations. On Tuesday, more than 130 DHL salaried agency staff at Bromwich and Solihull were told they'd be axed. The JLR's Castle Bromwich plant covers 110 acres, employs around 3,200 people, and provides body in white and final trim and assembly facilities for both Jaguar XJ and XF models. And the model that's coming to an end is the XJ.
Not necessarily. Voluntary retirement, it goes and takes your high expenditure workers out of the equation and allows you to renew your workforce with younger, cheaper people. You'd have to go and see what the exact effect is of doing this.
Right. Well, I think first you have to see how many actually take the voluntary reduction.
That's right.
And then, because they have a number of people they're trying to not have around anymore, or a number they're trying to reach as far as salary is concerned. So if they don't reach that, though, then they typically start cutting people involuntarily.
And like they said, it's in line with the end of a model, so
it's a good time to make a break and change your people out.
Exactly.
Why the new Land Rover Defender is not being built in the UK. So JLR shocked some people last week, this is earlier in the month, when it announced it would be building its new Defender model in Slovakia rather than Solihull. The Lode Lane plant has always been seen as the spiritual home of Land Rover, and when production of the iconic off-roader came to an end there in January 2016, there was always the expectation that the new version would be made in Solihull. As far back as July last year, we this is Coventry Live, said that production of the new Defender at Jaguar Land Rover's new factory in Nitra, Slovakia was pretty much a done deal. This was the view of author and former Land Rover employee Mike Gold. Mike, who worked in many areas of Land Rover, including its public relations department, who has written several books on the Land Rover mark, saw it coming. As Mike said, Defender's move to Slovakia comes on the heels of a prediction from the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders that in the event of a no-deal Brexit, British car output would rapidly slump by 30%. Honda has already announced the closure of the Swindon and other plants are under threat, but it would be unfair to blame Brexit completely. As one insider told me about Solihull, if you want to build cars, you wouldn't do it here. Speaking about the history of Solihull, Mike said, constructed in the late 1930s in what was then open countryside, Solihull was built as a shadow factory to make aero engines should town center factories be targeted. Rover moved into Solihull after the war and began building the Defender's ancestor, the Land Rover in 48. Over the decades, it was expanded to produce car models, with the Land Rover taking it over completely in the 1980s. Confined by post-war housing developments, expansion is impossible, while modernization of a facility still bearing remnants of its wartime camouflage paint is difficult and expensive. When Ford moved in 2000, they were none too impressed about the state of the plant, investing millions on improvements after years of neglect by BMW. Even then, they required a commitment from the workforce to more efficient working before allocating production of the third-generation Discovery on the site. Slovakia has form when it comes to producing cars. It makes more of them per head of population than anywhere else in the world. Part of Czechoslovakia until 1993, Slovakia was involved in component supply for Skoda and other brands like Tatra, with final production facilities coming later. Further on, it's not just JLR who have chosen to set up operations there. Mike went on to say, with output topping 1 million vehicles from VW, PSA, and Kia plants, production is scheduled to grow in 2019, with the Nitro plant coming on stream, with a full Discovery now in production and Defender soon to follow. The burgeoning output is fed by international component suppliers who've set up facilities in Slovakia to feed the production lines. And he says the new Defender will be very different to its predecessor. Surprise. The new Defender won't be a handmade vehicle with volumes around 20,000 like the old model, but a state-of-the-art aimed at markets where it can generate volumes of 60,000 plus. JLR is realizing that you don't move forward as a company by looking back at past glories, but by aiming for a sustainable and growing future. If this means leaving greasy-fingered enthusiasts or muck-spreading, towing farmers behind, then so be it. It is a lot better than losing Land Rover and all it stands for completely.
Oh, way to offend your loyal customer base.
I do like his comment, though, that it's likely that we would not have Land Rover right now had they not made some changes. So,
of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd rather have them than not.
But
it would certainly true.
Be really cool if, they would utilize that Czechoslovakian connection to the point where they actually infused the Land Rover with some of the really cool Tatra bits. Nobody does big trucks off-road better than Tatra.
Now, remind me, those have been used in some of the rallies?
Tatra does a lot of the chase trucks in the Dakar are either Tatras or MANs, but they actually have a class for those, and the Tatras actually compete on their own merit. Tatra
that's what I was thinking.
Does multiple axles, 6 and 8-wheel drive, with a backbone chassis with a torque tube down the middle and swing axles. Nobody articulates a big truck better than Tatra.
Very nice.
Interesting.
Maybe they will get some parts,
And of course,
Harold.
Historically, that's the company that gave us the Volkswagen, but anyway.
Yeah. So there is some history there, Harold, that they'll be potentially tapping into.
Well, it'd be nice if they would fully tap it, but okay.
Well, maybe in time. Maybe Tatra will buy them.
so yeah, from Tata to Tatra, that'd be an easy change.
That's right. Just an R. Add an R.
Yeah, just insert it. I'm not sure that would be a step up in terms of economic might.
A lot of this comes down to that, Slovakia is lower cost than England and doesn't have Brexit problems.
Oh yeah, come for the food and stay for the cheap labor.
Let's face it. That's almost all it is. I think it's probably about 80% of it is the labor's cheaper.
It's cheap labor and it's a way around Brexit.
I think that was an extra bonus for them because they started this plan before Brexit was even being considered. True. It was just more. I think it was just a good benefit.
Yeah,
moving
happy accident they call it.
Yeah.
Well, and there is one quote in the article that if you want to build a vehicle, Coventry is not a place to do it these days.
Oh no.
So
you don't want to build cars in Michigan either for the same reason.
True.
Move on to how about tech news, maybe a little out of the mire that JLR's experiencing. Inside Jaguar Land Rover's new straight 6 engines. Most recently, it was Mercedes-Benz. Now Jaguar Land Rover is switching back from a V6 to an inline 6-cylinder petrol engine. The configuration, once used by the likes of the E-Type and the XJS. The new 3-liter turbocharged unit, which features a 48-volt mild hybrid technology, makes its debut in the new Range Rover Sport HST. and replaces the previous 3-liter supercharged V6. Benefits when compared with a V6 include fewer parts. An inline 6 has a 6-cylinder head, not 2. Economies of scale unlocked by sharing parts with the smaller Ingenium engines and slower power delivery. The inline 6 combination of 83mm bore and 92mm stroke is identical to the 4-cylinder Ingenium engines, and output is boosted by a 2-scroll turbocharger plus another compressor driven by an electric motor, which helps eliminate lag. Fuel efficiency is boosted by a 48-volt mild hybrid system. It harvests energy from under braking, stores it in a battery, and can redeploy it, for instance, when moving away from after the start-stop system has killed the engine at the lights. That would be traffic lights.
They really kind of hit on it when they talk about, the fact that it shares parts with the Ingenium. That, building a modular engine design like that means you can make either the 4 or the 6 with the same tooling, which saves production costs big time.
And it certainly makes it easier in terms of stocking parts as well.
Right. Right. The big drawback, of course, is that the 6 is longer, so it's harder to package it within the engine bay, and that's why the V design was popular for so long.
So it had generally smaller footprint then?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look back in this country, back in the 40s and 50s, when we all had the straight 8 cylinders in line, and you had these really long hood lines, and the cars were very dramatic, and that was a great styling thing back then, but as needs and shapes and tastes changed, the hood line got shorter, and you can't fit 8 cylinders in a row. So you put them in a V, and the engine's half as long.
Which for Land Rover, that's not so much of a problem for example, the Range Rover line.
It's not a problem until you try to turn the engine sideways.
True.
And Ingenium's the first full Land Rover developed engine, right? That's they own it lock, stock, and barrel.
Well, I mean, yeah, Gclrc does. It's a combination. It's Jag and Land Rover. It's the first one they've developed by themselves in
a little while.
Yeah, quite a while.
Well, even back to the beginning, right? Weren't they using the Buick? They got the Buick V.
In 1970. Prior to that, of course, Rover was making Rover engines, and Jag was making Jag engines, and
right. Remember, Land Rover was a Rover product, so.
Right, it was Rover cars, and of course, Jag didn't really do anything new from 1948 to 1995.
Well, is it fair to say this is the first Land Rover, and I say and specifically saying that, designed and developed engine that Land Rover itself has designed and developed?
Only when you want to go and play games with the corporate history and how things had merged and everything else.
So maybe
definitely the first for Gclrc.
Okay. Yeah, it's the first engine that Jag and Land Rover engineers have worked together to develop from a clean sheet of paper.
All right, we'll take that. So the first Gclrc designed, developed engine.
Sure.
All right. Good. Let's move on. City of Amsterdam to ban polluting cars from 2030. Gasoline and diesel-fueled cars and motorcycles will be banned from Amsterdam from 2030 in an effort to clean up the air. Amsterdam said it aims to replace all gasoline and diesel engines by emission-free alternatives such as electric and hydrogen cars by the end of the next decade. And here they buried the lead, though. It will start next year by banning diesel cars built before 2005 from the city and will gradually expand the range of vehicles that are banned. The city said it will use subsidies and parking permits to stimulate people to switch to cleaner cars. So,
and now what if you convert those diesels over to run on hash oil?
You're going to have to ask the Amsterdam City Council.
I think they'll be happy with it.
Yeah. That sounds like an alternative fuel, Harold.
Exactly.
They'll be mellowed by it for sure.
Oh, I thought we need Michael for. Oh no, Dixon's good with the puns, right?
Not as good as Michael.
Add that to your list of banning internal combustions, and I have. So we now have Amsterdam 2030, Hamburg is banning diesels. China is looking at plans to ban petrol and diesels. I don't think we ever got word that they did. Norway to completely ban petrol power cars by 2025. German government votes to ban internal combustion engines by 2030. India going electric only. Goal of no gas diesel sales by 2030. France to ban sales of petrol and diesel by 2040. Britain to ban new diesel and car sales by 2040.
I hope they can find all the materials necessary to make all those batteries.
Yeah.
The rare earths. What country does that come from? Who are we currently pissing off?
Well, rare earths aren't actually that rare. They're just rather nasty to make. Most rare earths came from the United States, actually, until the Chinese could produce them faster because they didn't have to really worry about all the effluent coming out of their mines and factories.
Oh, clean air and clean water.
Yeah, they're not exactly environmentally friendly to produce, which is ironic for a product that's supposed to be better for the environment.
All right, moving on to some specific Land Rover model news. Range Rover Astronaut Edition is literally only for Virgin Galactic space tourists. It's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, or 5 years later, anybody.
Land Rover has been Virgin Galactic's automotive partner, providing Richard Branson's space fetish with vehicles to use around his operations. Now the automaker has whipped up a special edition just for the souls who intend to take Spaceship 2 to the edge of space. Land Rover's SVO unveiled the Range Rover Astronaut Edition, only available to those who sign up to be a Virgin Galactic future astronaut. The vehicle features space-themed doodaddery inside and out. I think I said that right. It's available with a buyer's choice of a plug-in hybrid or V8 powertrain. The Astronaut's Edition exterior is swathed in one-off zero-gravity blue paint job, which I'm going to interject and say here, I think that's the best part about this whole vehicle. That paint job just looks, the color looks fantastic.
It reminds me a lot of Audi's Aviator Gray.
Oh, okay. Land Rover says
or Luftwaffe Gray, as one of my friends likes to call it.
Land Rover says the zero-gravity blue paint job is inspired by the depth and intensity of the night sky. The only other major additions to the exterior are a set of puddle lamps, which bear the silhouette of the Virgin Galactic Spaceship 2, and some Astronaut Edition badges. The interior gets most of the attention. The cup holders carry a piece of the Virgin Spaceship Unity's front landing skid, one of which has a Richard Branson quote on it. It will be swapped out for a piece of that astronaut's own ship after the flight lands. There's a unique
Well, you hope. I mean, like, we talking like a piece that's been unbolted or a piece they've scraped up out of the rubble?
There's a unique DNA of flight graphic on the center console and rear armrest. The door handles are made from solid aluminum and carry a constellation pattern, and it's repeated on the back of each front headrest. Astronauts can also have their initials stitched onto the headrests. Before you go wondering how astronauts can afford Range Rovers, it's worth noting these aren't astronauts, as you might think of them, scientists and engineers who spend their lives preparing for the rigors of space travel. Instead, these are space tourists plunking down $250,000 for 90 seconds of zero-gravity experience. There's some pre-flight training, but it's not exactly NASA. Nevertheless, odds are that Virgin's future astronauts won't have too much trouble plunking down whatever cash is required to own this Range Rover. The automaker didn't specify how much it would cost, but for context, a standard Range Rover autobiography starts at $143,000 American.
Let's just hope it's not, it doesn't cost $170,000 per minute, like the space ride that you pay for to entitle you to buy it.
If you can afford that per minute, you can afford the special Range Rover.
Unless it has hover technology, I don't want it.
Well, to maintain exclusivity, are they going to go and have caveats that you can't resell it to the masses?
Well, you'd think, but used cars are used cars. The only way they can get around that is to pull a GM, and you don't actually buy it; you're only leasing it.
Good point.
Yeah, important then to check the fine print of your sales agreement. Just it may be in there; you never know. But there are some pictures. If you go out to the link in the show notes, there's some pictures that you can see of it and all the things we talked about, including I think that really cool paint job. I think that was the best part of that.
And if the demand is there, people will be counterfeiting them.
And if you really want the paint colors can be matched.
Oh, yes, they can.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure if you went to Land Rover and said, I'd like that paint color, but I didn't take the Virgin Galactic and you threw money at them, they would do it.
Nah, I know a guy.
Yeah. The 2019 Range Rover Sport P400e plug-in hybrid review. This is from TFL car, the fast lane car. Yeah, I'll read parts of it here, maybe not all of it. The 2019 Range Rover Sport P400e hybrid SUV combines luxury, sportiness, and extra fuel economy. This handsome SUV has a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder gas engine and a plug-in hybrid electric motor that deliver 398 horsepower, 472 pound-feet of torque. The battery pack provides up to 31 miles of all-electric range. Starting from $79,000, this plug-in Range Rover Sport goes on sale in the summer of 2019. It takes a fair amount of effort to climb in, but occupants sit high. There's good room for 4 tall adults, despite an extra large front console with an optional refrigerator compartment. Rear door openings could be wider. Sounds like a Discovery. The moderately sized cargo compartment has a wide but high opening that could make it difficult to load conventional cargo or even put a large dog up in there. Performance with the electric assist, the 400e's fuel economy figures of 19 miles per gallon in the city, 25 on the highway, especially if the driver puts it in eco mode and not dynamic mode. There's comfort in other driving modes, including rock crawling, and the steering is precise but rather heavy, and the ride is on the firm side. You can feel significant bumps despite the adaptive air suspension. The author says, I was aware of the vehicle's roughly 5,100 pound weight while buzzing around curves, but handling was helped by the Sport's electronic traction control, dynamic stability control, roll stability control, not to mention its 20-inch wheels. The anti-lock brakes have an emergency braking system. TFL cars take. My test Range Rover Sport looked especially sporty with its optional Firenze red paint, which covered my test vehicle, deserved nothing less. With options and a destination and delivery charge, the test vehicle was $93,200. It's expensive, but it still offers everything a normal Range Rover Sport would, with a lot of added practicality. Some attractive options are expensive. They include the $4,000 driver assist package that contains blind spot assist, 360-degree camera, adaptive cruise control with steering assist, and lane keep and park assist. Other options included a 4-zone climate control, head-up display, cooled front and rear seats, heated rear seats, and special 21-inch split-spoke style wheels. That is your 2019 Range Rover Sport.
Well, I know how I would save $4,000. And the other $89,000, but that's another story.
The 2020 Land Rover Discovery Sport updated. So this was announced, the new Discovery Sport on the heels of the Evoque last month. Same platform. No price has been given, but I'll read you some of the commentary here from CNET. Land Rover on Tuesday unveiled the 2020 Disco Sport. On the spectrum of refreshes, this one is right about in the middle, making some slight visual changes while updating the more important underlying bits. 2 new powertrains have been introduced. One, a 246 horsepower i4 from the modular Ingenium engine, while the other one slaps a 48 volt mild hybrid system into the equation, boosting output to 296 horsepower. That mild hybrid system comes alongside a new unifying platform now running on Land Rover's premium Transverse architecture platform. Not only does it allow the Discovery Sport to pick up this kind of electrification, it makes the body some 13% stiffer. It's also quieter, and thanks to some improved sound deadening measures. Inside, the center console has been redesigned, eschewing the rotary dial in favor of the stick-like ear lever seen on the other Jaguar Land Rover vehicles. This rejiggering also makes enough space for wireless device charging. 6 USB ports are scattered throughout. The rear view mirror can display what the rear view camera sees. You've probably seen the ads for the Evoque. It's the same thing. They put it on the radio antenna in the back of the vehicle so you can see through the rear of the vehicle, which actually is pretty cool. On the infotainment front, the Discovery Sport now rocks a Land Rover's InTouch Pro system with its 10-inch screen. It's not Touch Pro Duo, though. The climate controls aren't relegated to their own screens. It does add CarPlay, Android Auto, a 4G Wi-Fi spot. Safety systems are available, but not standard, and they include adaptive cruise control, automatic braking, and lane assist. And the 2020 Discovery Sport hits dealerships this summer. Pricing will be announced later. That's for the benefit of David Short. He likes his Disco Sport. He really does.
And that's great. If he's happy, that's what matters.
Mm-hmm. Now let's get into the new Defender news. This is not the technical part or the business part. This is the actual new Defender itself. April 30th was World Land Rover Day, and we had recorded before that. And on World Land Rover Day, Land Rover started a kind of a rollout campaign for the new Defender. They announced...
So what they should have done on the first World Land Rover Day a year ago, it would have been the ultimate investment opportunity for them they've finally gotten around to doing this year.
Reading from Autoblog, Land Rover has appointed today World Land Rover Day because that's when the first Series 1 greeted audiences at the 1948 Amsterdam Motor Show. Consecrating the day, we have new images of the new Defender testing around the world. And then there's a press release that came out, so they're pulling from their press release here. The fleet has covered nearly 446,000 miles in climates from 40 below in the Arctic to 122 degrees in the desert, and that would be Fahrenheit. Tracking through Moab lowlands, 10,000-foot Colorado passes, Dubai dunes, and the Nuremberg Ring. They announced they had been going through all this development and testing. They came out with a new picture that still had it wrapped, but they had removed some of the cladding that had been on, especially around the bonnet and on the hood, which is the roof in America. That's the Tusk edition, because let's see, I'll read from this article that had pictures. What's the Tusk? Why am I all of a sudden? Oh, here we go. Defender prototypes have reached 1.2 million kilometers in testing. To mark the milestone, the brand has revealed an image of a far less camouflaged Defender clad in graphics of Tusk, a conservation group that has partnered with Land Rover for 15 years. The prototype will join Land Rover Defender's testing program and will work in the Borana Conservancy in Kenya. This had minimal camouflage of the prototype, gives a better view of the Defender. The best part of this image is the prototype no longer wears the fake hood, which was recognizable as a false surface feature designed to preserve the secrecy. As expected, the real hood and front fascia profile are more like a Discovery's, or more Discovery-like. That's what they say. Another bit of surface camo that was ditched was the squared-off roof, which also looked like a false surface, and the real roof is far less boxy and more aerodynamic. Then, a few days later, maybe it was a week later, they came out with the Invictus new Defender. So the 2020 Land Rover Defender returns in close-up shots. This was another reveal, and this was different. To jumpstart the 12-month countdown to the 5th Invictus Games, Gclrc, the event's official presenting partner, showcases the upcoming revived Defender. And this one, that's really all the text was there to read on that one. And when I look at this image, it has new cladding on it, but at the same time, they had removed the boxiness around the hood and also the roof, but now it looks like there's a gutter at the roof where when you look at the Tusk, the previous one, there was no gutter-like looking at the top of the roof, nor was there this pronounced belt line on the side of the vehicle. The Tusk vehicle has kind of the roundedness, at least it looks like that to me, in a current series truck or Defender. This one has this kind of pronounced line that goes down the side.
More like the truck it came from.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think what we're seeing in the difference there is that, well, in both cases, the Defender with the disguising removed, all the fake hood, bonnet, roof line, all that stuff. Obviously, the camo has been removed and replaced with a full vehicle wrap. But what's interesting is that the first one, the Tusk one, looks like what you would get for a mock-up of a vehicle wrap. So it's a 3D rendering, whereas the Invictus Games ones are the actual vehicle in its final wrap.
One's a rendering, one's a photograph, is what you're saying.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Oh, did they say that about the Tusk, that it was a rendered one?
Well, it sure looks more rendered than real.
Well, I guess
you can tell it's a rendering.
Yeah, the image it certainly looks compressed almost because there's only a couple quote unquote pictures, right? Whereas the Invictus one, there was a number of pictures. Plus they had the third, fourth in line to the throne. What's who was that?
Harry,
yes.
Yep.
Harry was there, and so that
I think he's been bumped down to 5 or 6 at this point. But
I know this is off topic completely, but since you brought up the royals, had watched Versailles on Netflix, and that's French King Louis XIV. He's the longest serving monarch, I believe, in Europe, something like 72, 78 years, something like that. So I now believe that Elizabeth II is trying to outserve him on the throne. I think that's her goal.
Given how well her mother lasted, it's possible.
That's right.
But on the Land Rover, given how many months away it is from the official unveiling of the Defender, you got to wonder how accurate is the current body styles that we're seeing, because they still could go and change a lot on it.
Or both of these could have things added or subtracted to them to confuse and disguise things like that. What looks to be a gutter may very well have just been added on to confuse us and make us talk about it.
I think they're showing less, or disguising less and less, but they're still with these full wraps, unlike a full wrap for a vehicle that's going to be used on road. they still have lights and windows covered. So there's a lot to be stripped off still.
A gutter and belt line would make it more like the old Defender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that gutter. I was like, then you can put on a roof rack, right?
Well, yeah.
Right.
For instance, yes.
Well,
and you can have interior rain, but because the rain gutter does not direct the rain away, it brings it in.
It does.
Like a funnel.
As any good gutter, it's a collector.
Yes.
It's just where the drain spout is.
Right. In this case, directly over to the driver.
Right over the driver's foot. Yes, I'm well aware of that. Interesting. Along with this, there's also the new Defender had been spotted at the Nuremberg Ring, and they had I'm sorry, not the Nuremberg Ring. That was last month. This time it was spotted outside of at Solihull in Gaydon. In Warwickshire, but this one appears to be testing a new bull bar and a front winch combination for hardcore off-road enthusiasts. And Autocar, this is the article I'm reading from, a check of the number plate on a private website as opposed to the DLVA site details it as being powered by a petrol-electric drivetrain. It's the first time that we've seen a prototype of the new Defender without diesel power. Autocar understands that this will be offered with both mild hybrid and plug-in hybrid engines in 2020, although no visible charging port was seen.
Even the charging port on the mild hybrids that they've already released is hidden in the grille, so
True.
It wouldn't be visible.
But it's cool to see the bull
like
bar.
a big cord dangling out the front.
That would be the block heater.
Yeah, only northern people will get that joke, but yeah.
Since they're showing off the bull bar and the winch on that one, if you look closely at the photos of the Invictus Games vehicle, it actually has dual recovery points on the rear bumper. Now, who knows whether those will be production or whether they were just tie downs, but one can hope.
It's interesting to see them incorporating a front winch, because that was something they were trying to do away with in one of the vehicles, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, with the
Disco 5.
I was going to say, It was one of the Discos. They tried to do a rear-only winch or some crazy thing like that.
Yeah, that was with the SVX.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yep.
That was an aftermarket consideration. It's nice to see this being considered during production development.
Well, the SVX was maybe aftermarket, but still factory supported, so that's why I say that.
Right? No, exactly.
Right.
No, it's the same point though. I mean, it's just that they produced the vehicle to production, and then we're doing some. Even though it was factory supported, it was still kind of
right. It was interesting to see JLR thinking ahead about the fact that people might want a winch on the front.
And also, the new Defender was spotted testing in India for the first time. Shortly after that, Land Rover in India put on to their website, coming soon. So a week after the next generation Land Rover Defender was spotted testing in India, it showed up on the website under coming soon. And I know this will shock everyone. I actually did some research before the show. I checked the US Land Rover website and the UK Land Rover website, and the new Defender shows up on both of those as coming soon.
And underneath the coming soon, did it say you're going to like it?
There's a picture of Jerry. He's waving. You're going to like it. Yeah.
You're going to like it or else.
Animated GIF of Jerry waving.
You're going to like it. Speaking of Jerry, so this was from core77.com, and this is sort of a follow-on from Alloy and Grit's discussion with Mr. McGovern. Was that it was about this time last year, wasn't it? Or maybe about a year and a half ago now.
I choose to block such things out.
Well, we're gonna read you some more from this article, Harold. You're gonna have to put your McGovern hat on and think.
I'll go grab my turtleneck.
Do that. No. It's a full scarf, Harold. It's a scarf.
He still wears turtlenecks under the scarf.
So at the time, Land Rover was structured. I'm not going to read it all. So if you want to read the whole thing, go ahead and do that. I'm going to try to read relevant bits here. At the time, Land Rover was structured the way that a lot of car companies are. The design group reported to the engineering group, but fortuitously for Land Rover, Ratan Tata, who was then chairman of Tata Group, wasn't your average businessman. He held a degree from Cornell in architecture and structural engineering. He was trained in both design and engineering and understood the relationship between the two should B. Thus, Tata had the question for Land Rover. Why does design report to engineering? Jerry says, we're all in it together, but they do the engineering better than we can do. We do the design better than they can. So we respect each other and we make sure we get it in the right order. The article goes on, we're at a press event for Range Rover's new Evoque where the car high sales figures have been touted. McGovern takes the mic and turns the talk towards design. Quote, of course, volume is important to us and business is important, but more important is that we create vehicles that our customers love for life, unquote. Design, quote, design leadership and engineering integrity is at the top of the bar no matter what the vehicle is. That hasn't always been the case at Land Rover. In the past, they looked the way they did because of what they did. But what
and that's why people like them.
But what we've tried to do over the past 10 years or so is give them a good dose of design in order to make these vehicles more universally desirable without them becoming generic. And I will insert, really?
Yeah.
Because I think they all look generic now. And
especially within the brand. It's like, how do you tell a Disco from a Rangy, from a Disco Sport, from a et cetera, et cetera? The only one I can pick out of a lineup is the Evoque.
I got to read the bonnet.
Damn near.
McGovern goes on to say, that has certainly made a difference, and we're doing it without it in any way undermining the engineering because the two can be reconciled if you've got the right attitude. See, Harold, you need the right attitude.
Yeah, I mean, my attitude is you need to have a team composed of designers and engineers, and they need to work together. But Jerry says that, but what he really means is that design should not report to engineering. Engineering should report to design.
I tend to agree.
Under desirability. Let's face it, people don't actually need luxury Land Rovers. I said it, they don't actually need luxury watches, luxury homes, luxury holidays. They don't need them, but they desire them. And that's the difference. If people can feel that desire with products and services that are morally sociable, responsible, and sustainable, in the process, feed lots of families and keep people in business, there's nothing wrong with that, unquote.
So $90,000 impulse buys. Okay.
Refining versus rebooting. Quote, there's this preoccupation in the automotive industry that every time you do a new car, it has to be completely different. Why? When it comes to a new vehicle that we haven't produced before, that's our opportunity to be radical. But if you've got something that's established that people love, I'd rather refine it. Look at the evolution of the 911. It's a very good example. Or the evolution of the Range Rover. That's our approach, unquote.
That's ironic.
I thought so. Defender of design. And this is the article stating, yes, we know what a lot of diehard Land Rover fans most want to hear McGovern talk about, the Defender. Quote, our design strategy or our brand architecture, Land Rover is still a master brand. Range Rover is our family of luxury vehicles that talk to refinement and sophistication. Discovery talks to versatility. And I think when Defender comes, this strategy will all make sense. It will be the absolute polarization of Range Rover, to give you a clue. Unquote.
No, it won't be. You can't be the absolute polarization when you share platforms and you share parts.
He's the design guy, Harold. It's just going to be a design polarization.
And you make it look just like the other stuff.
So how close do you think the new Land Rover that you've seen so far, do you think it looks like the rest of the mark, the rest of the vehicles?
Well, I think the new Defender. New Defender, he's done a better job at creating something that's recognizably different than he might have. I will give him that. But it's still, I don't know. I don't think it's distinguishable enough.
Well, we really haven't seen what the bonnet looks like either, because
we haven't seen everything.
Shared so much between every single model is that front end looks identical. The Range Rovers and the Discovery Sport, the rest of the vehicle also looks identical, with the exception of the Disco 5. You can tell that the back end is not the same. Same with the Defender. You can tell the back end is not the same, but that front end, it's probably going to look identical.
Right, and that's the problem, is you don't create, a distinguishable identity with just grill and taillights.
Right.
Although what we've seen so far, I think, is definitely a departure from the path that they had been going down. The rear,
I agree.
The rear does not taper down like it does in the Evoque and like it does even in the Disco. You don't have that rear tapering
as much. It's still tapers, but not as much.
And you have
I will give him that.
I haven't seen the taper. I haven't seen any tapering actually.
It's there. I've seen it. If you look carefully, it's there.
Maybe on the
Invictus
one.
It's only like an inch. It's not like 6 inches. It's still there, but it's very slight. So they've done that part reasonably well. And yeah, like I said, it's not as disappointing as I was expecting. I still don't know that I like it, but I don't hate it as much as I thought I might.
Ooh, there we go. There's some movement. Looking at the Invictus one, Harold, from the side, I don't see any sloping of the roof at all. And it just could, maybe it's because of that fake gutter they put on there, but I don't see that. But that's fine. We'll know later. But I think
it'll be easy. It'll be easier when you get a straight on side shot.
Yes, I would agree.
But I have seen the taper. It's there.
And there's, the door's completely different. At least it does hang, and it looks like it's going to swing to the side. It does have the short overhangs, even less than what is currently in the rest of the Land Rover lineup. I like it. I think it looks generally better than what I was expecting and what they had shown us before, but I think it is enough. I do see a departure from that design language that we'd already seen, I guess is
right. Still just looks too expensive. Another way to sum it up.
Well, yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be. I mean, that they've been telegraphing that.
Yeah, and there was no way for them to please me on that issue either.
Right.
How long they've been telegraphing that, Dixon? What's it been? 10 years or something? You've been kind of following that strategic line.
It's been a long time they've been doing that.
Right.
Let's wait and see what actually comes out.
That's been the line for 4 years now. Wait and see.
I guess
again, they started the development process 5 years too late. That's the bottom line.
Very true. Abysmally the first time.
Yeah, which they didn't start that soon enough either.
Very true.
Probably had to do well. If you look at the timeline, though, they had come out with he had to get the new the Evoque, and those designs were coming out. Then there was the LRX concept, and that became the Discovery, if I'm not mistaken, or part of that. And then after they got that done, then they started working on the Defender, and then they came out with a version that no one liked, and then
which we call the O-Fender.
The O-Fender. Here we go. And then it looks like they changed their focus to the other Land Rover models, and probably gave this some consideration, but not as much as they should have, as you indicated. I will say a shout out to the marketing folks, though. I think they're still doing a good job, because here they used World Land Rover Day to give us a little taste, and then they teased some even more, and are kind of slowly bringing it out, and they're not just you're going to dump it on us on one day and say, here it is, okay, and take out all the claddings off, everything's off. And
from a marketing standpoint, I think it's an interesting thing going forward that they can leverage this World Land Rover Day on an annual basis to reveal new product.
Speaking not of new products, but of old products, and in fun Land Rover news, James Bond's new ride. Daniel Craig spotted in a Land Rover on the set of Bond 25.
Or new old ride, depending on how you want to define it.
Yes, exactly. They had some pictures. You probably may have seen them on Instagram and I think on Twitter. It looks like Land Rover supplied the movie with a blue Series 3. And he's actually seen in the vehicle. Looks like they're going to use it for filming. So that's kind of cool.
More than one?
They just said one. There was only one.
Interesting.
Just
usually when you're going to feature something in a film, you've got two or three so that you can wad one or two of them up.
Depends on whether it's going to be used in the high-speed action scenes or not. My guess is not.
Yes, I would agree with you.
And of course, the filter down effect of that is if you look at films like Ace Ventura, the series parts market got flooded after that production wrapped on that, because there were lots and lots of parts available. Some of which are on your truck, by the way, John.
That's right. I think the reason they're using that Series 3 goes with the premise of this movie, which is that Bond is retired, and he's retired in Jamaica. So my guess is it's probably the beginning, and he's tooling around in this slow, old, broken down kind of vehicle.
He's in retirement doing important things.
That's right. And then they're going to probably bring him out of Felix brings him out of retirement, and that's when I think the Aston Martin comes into play.
Yeah, you got to give him something that does go fast.
But given when James Bond was written and everything else, it's just sad that he wasn't driving around in a two-way rather than a semi-plushy Series 3.
Yeah, a plush 3.
Given when it was written, by the time he would have retired from that lineage, 3 might have been coming out, so he might have invested in a state-of-the-art workhorse.
Yeah, 7-to-1 to 8-to-1 compression.
There you go.
finally, I found, just doing some digging, there is a Wikipedia page for the first overland, the Oxford and Cambridge Far Eastern Expedition, and it needs some updates.
Hopefully by people who know the details and know how to get them right.
Well, that's exactly it. There is a citation needed for there's a section here called Adaption for Screen. They talk about the fact that there's a DVD out there, but they say citation needed. So hopefully maybe one of our listeners is a Wikipedia editor and they can make those edits. I don't have an account, so I went down that path. I don't know if there's even a way to suggest anything. I didn't see that. I didn't spend too much time on it. But the DVD...
I know a guy.
Oh, good. Well, then, you can reach out to him. The DVD needs a mention and some specifics because, Graham Aldis, who has done that, should be listed on here. Also, Tim Slesser should have a Wikipedia entry. He does not. BB and Adrian Cal do, but the other gentlemen do not have Wikipedia entries. That probably should be the case.
Interesting they do, but Tim doesn't.
I would think, I'm just saying, maybe the podcast actually has some citation material that could be included as part of this Wikipedia entry, especially for talking to Adam Bennett and the retrieval of said Oxford vehicle.
We could be footnotes.
I think so. That could be very interesting. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We just aren't supposed to do it ourselves. Hint, hint.
Exactly. There may be a listener who has knowledge and has capability. Yes. That could.
Again, I might know a guy.
All right. Good. Well, maybe if we have multiple people doing it, Harold, that'll give it even more weight, don't you think?
Perhaps.
All right. Well, that is the news for May 2019. Commonwealth Classics is a direct importer of classic cars and trucks from Europe and South America. They're a registered Virginia dealership with a physical showroom just 45 minutes west of Washington, D.C. They specialize in importing and restoring different makes, models, and variants of vehicles not originally sold in the United States. Their vehicles are imported, titled, and available for you to test drive before you buy. For the Land Rover enthusiast looking for two-door Range Rover Classics, TDI-powered Discoveries, or beautifully restored Defenders, their showroom in Marshall, Virginia is a unique destination. Looking for something special? They can help source, restore, and import that special truck you've been looking for. Contact Commonwealth Classics for your next classic vehicle. Commonwealth Classics. Visit www.cwclassics.com. I now welcome to the Centresteer podcast all the way from the great state of California, specifically Northern California, Greg and Eric. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So you gentlemen are connected. I'm very excited by this on the technical side of it. We're using the new Roadcaster. I have one of you through Skype and one of you through the telephone. It's very exciting. For me, it's exciting. I like the technical aspects of it.
And what part of California are you guys from?
I'm in the greater Sacramento area.
Okay.
And I'm in the Bay Area, San Jose specifically.
Right on. I have a brother in East Bay, and my wife is in the Sierra foothills just outside of Fresno.
Okay, cool. I love that area.
Okay. Well, you can have it.
And I should say Harold's wife is taking care of her parents, so that's why she's there. So
defending California against one crazy lady.
But this is the Centresteer podcast. We're talking about Land Rover. So I've invited Craig and Eric to the show to talk about a new event that is about to take place in June that NorCal is putting on. But first, gentlemen, tell us how did NorCal Land Rover Club come into play? And of course, before we even started the show, you were going to explain, is it NorCal or Northern California?
Yeah, glad to do so, and thanks for having us on. The club's name is Northern California Land Rover Club, but we go by NorCal as we shorten everything in this state. So in our URL, our web page is listed as such as well. So norcalrovers.org. Can say either or, but we kind of respond to both. The event, I mean, kind of kicking off, starting with that, or starting with the history of the club. And we're into our 13th year now, and we've been doing events all over the state of California and outside of the California as well for the past 10 plus years. And we've done Rubicon events before, small groups of people just kind of going on in the club, organized amongst themselves, never really kind of looking at this as something that we should put forth some effort into plan something and try to get as many of our members out as we can, and as well as many Land Rover owners out onto this kind of iconic trail. And that's kind of where the idea came about. Was this is in our backyard, is Northern California Land Rover Club, and we should kind of take pride in ownership of the trail from a Land Rover brand perspective, our owner's perspective, and get out, try and see if we can get something going every year on an annual basis and have a great event. There's lots of different events that go on Rubicon throughout, every summer, and that are other brand specific or kind of group centric. And, we think it's time that we try and do the same thing for Land Rover owners.
The Rubicon is really pretty much known as a Jeep trail and Jeep usage, and of course they've slapped Rubicon on all their trucks.
Well, like they own it or something.
Exactly. Yes.
If a Jeep can do it, there's no reason why any Land Rover shouldn't be able to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, on the Rubicon, they have events all the time, and they have several Jeep events, a lot of Toyota events and stuff, but there has not been a Land Rover-specific event, considering that we consider Land Rover an authentic off-road vehicle for enthusiasts, and the Rubicon is sort of in our jurisdiction as far as being the NorCal Club. It's kind of our duty to start something for Land Rover owners to get together.
Well done, gentlemen. Well done. I like that. It's your duty. In fact, it is. Well done.
Yeah, and you can definitely get through there in a variety of different vehicles and capabilities. I mean, so that's one of the things, too, we want to kind of educate Land Rover owners about is what type of vehicle can make it through, and then what your expectations should be with, different levels of technical equipment on your rig. Obviously, the larger the tires you have, the faster and easier it is, but it's not necessarily a requirement to have like a 42-inch tall tire or something like that.
Well, before you kind of get into that, can you maybe step back and tell us more about the Rubicon Trail? How big is it? What kind of trails are we talking about? How many are there? Because I'm sure a lot of folks are not familiar with the Rubicon Trail. Or can you maybe give us some more detail about the trails themselves? I assume it's more than one trail, first off.
Well, the Rubicon Trail is one trail, but there's a couple different ways to get into it. Typically run west to east, and there's two different entrances to get onto the trail. One is from Loon Lake, and then one would be from Wentworth. And you typically will run that all the way to basically Lake Tahoe. And it's an 18-mile trail. It's a rock crawling trail. It's really developed quite a bit over the years, with the popularity of it probably coming from Jeep calling their vehicles Rubicon. You get a lot of people going on there, and there's been a lot of money dumped into it. There's bathrooms all over the place, mile markers. It's a pretty user-friendly trail now. Yeah, we're excited to take a bunch of Land Rovers on there.
So you said it's a more of a rock crawling trail then? Is there water crossings?
Yeah, so through the 18 miles, there's a lot of well-known obstacles and bypasses in there. Like if you've ever heard of Little Sluice, Big Sluice, Old Sluice, Soup Bowl. But most of the really difficult areas have bypasses. You don't have to have an extremely modified truck. Depending on what time of the year you go, you will cross some water, but nothing very extreme. So if people are familiar with rock crawling trails, we have Fordyce up here, which has a large water crossing. There's nothing like that to where you're going to require a snorkel or you're going to risk really flooding the car or anything like that. But there's a bit of everything in the 18 miles. I would say most people are going to average 1 to 2 miles per hour. It's a very technical trail. And it's one of the longer trails you're going to go on in California. I would say probably the second longest, only shorter than maybe the Doozy.
1 to 2 miles an hour and 18 miles. I take it then you're not doing the whole trail.
You plan to camp, so it's usually 2 nights. If you're going at a kind of a good pace, that allows you a chance to get to camp and enjoy some of the swimming holes, the springs.
Okay.
And then you kind of move on to the second day.
That also gives you a chance. That gives you a chance to fix what you broke on the first day too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and it is a very challenging trail. Rock crawling is very challenging from a mental capacity standpoint. You have to kind of pay attention the whole time. There really isn't parts that you get to shut down. So you do want to get to the camp and kind of have that break where you can regroup and talk about the day's events and enjoy a beverage and cook some food and then get ready to go the next day.
Right. Somebody will be swapping a half shaft, I'll predict.
Yes, I would agree that they do happen.
Yeah, breakage is just part of it. So we try to get going early and allow for trail repairs or whatever to happen, especially in a large group. It's inevitable. The 2 camp spots that we have planned out for the weekend both have places to swim and everything. So even if we get there early and nothing goes wrong, there's plenty to do. So it'll be a fun weekend.
We are planning on having, like-minded rovers kind of travel together. Eric has a D2 that's extremely built up, and we'll have other folks that are coming in D2s or P38s kind of trying to stay together, and then some of the other folks that are in some of the older Discovery ones or Defenders, Range Rover Classics can kind of try and stay together as well. That helps with repairs and having spare parts, so you have people around you can kind of borrow from if you didn't happen to bring something.
Is it fair to say that this is a different event than I think folks here on the East Coast have experienced, where there's a central camping location and a central camp area where then you go out on the trail, come back and sleep for the night? So this sounds like more of an overland journey where you're taking everything with you, you're camping for the night, moving on then to the next stage till you get to the end, and then you can depart and go home. Does that seem accurate?
I would say yes, but besides the fact that it's not like a loop trail, we're gonna end up in a different place. There's really nothing overland about the Rubicon. It is a pure rock crawling trail.
I was trying.
Yeah, but you are right to where we're going to be moving every day. You can do it out and back, so if people want the trailer, they can do that. But we're going to be trying to end up on one side of the mountain to finish on the other there. I guess it is kind of overland in that respect.
Sure. Oh, I meant overland as in going a distance and not. It's that's the journey and the adventure. I don't know if that made any sense.
I mean, definitely like a typical Land Rover expedition, right? Just going over giant granite slabs versus kind of long Sahara runs.
And how many days is this? Is this a 2-3 day event?
It'll be 3 days, 2 nights. Some of us will be arriving like the night earlier, just to get to camp on Thursday night and start early Friday. Some people will drive in Friday morning. We can also accommodate folks that can't do the whole trip that want to come out. We can help organize people that want to come out for a day and just kind of get as far as they can on a Saturday and then turn around and come back. We can find some like-minded folks that want to do that can't make the whole trip, but the plan is to go Friday through Saturday this time around.
So we'll have staggered groups, because the way it works with a trail like the Rubicon is really difficult to have large groups of, let's say, like 8 or 10, or some of the overland trips you might have like 20 vehicles in there. But with rock crawling, because it's so much slower and you need spotting, it's best to do it in small groups. We'll have a group leaving in the morning, but then we'll have staggered smaller groups leaving throughout the day. And the main thing is we're going to try to meet up on Friday night and Saturday night, and then just kind of depart together in different groups in the morning.
That makes a lot of sense. So you're going to, how many trucks do you anticipate, or can you accommodate? Is there a limit to the number?
I don't think we have a limit at the moment. I mean, as many people as want to come, we'll make a number of groups to get everybody through. I think at the moment right now, our club currently has around 20 to 25 trucks that are capable of going to the Rubicon. And, we have about 60-70% of the folks that are interested at the moment. And then a number of folks have reached out throughout the Western states that have said that they're making plans to come out as well. So we're inviting everybody to come out, and we'll figure out skill levels and vehicle specifics and kind of organize from there, and as well as when they plan to arrive, right? As Eric mentioned, people can arrive at all different times and catch up in the evening. Some folks that are coming through with more built rigs on bigger tires can move really quickly than some of the people that are, kind of on a 33-inch tall tire, for example, will take a little bit longer getting through.
Yeah, and one of the cool things is I kind of take care of the social media stuff and whatnot, and we've had a few posts regarding this Rovicon event, and a lot of people have just been coming out of the woodwork who haven't really been associated with the club. But this is, if you're on the West Coast and you're into off-roading, this is a trail that you have to do. And for a lot of people, they haven't done it, haven't felt comfortable. And this is a great way to get on the trail and have the comfort of being in a group of people who have knowledge about your vehicle, maybe have parts, and maybe have more experience in picking lines and whatnot. So it's a really good way for a lot of people to do the trail when otherwise they might not feel comfortable. I think we're going to have a big contingent of non-club members that are going to be joining us.
It certainly is an iconic trail, and I certainly agree with you that it would be a good opportunity. What would you say, though, the skill level is, or are you able to accommodate all skill levels?
I think that this event will be unique to where we can accommodate almost like brand new drivers, because they'll be the hardest thing to do is to pick the proper line for your vehicle. And the reality is, if you have a good spotter, they're going to do pretty much all the heavy lifting for you. So this is a really good opportunity for a newer driver to take on a hard trail.
What are the dates? Is registration required? How much does the event cost?
Current dates are the June 20th to 30th. There's no registration fees or anything like that at the time. You will need to bring approximately $15 for one of the campgrounds does pay per vehicle. So that's a hard cost that, everybody will have to pay once we get there. They'll need to cover some of their obviously their own expenses, food, fuel, and that kind of thing. We do have some event merchandise that we're using that we have planned to have there only for those that attend. And then we have some as well, like on the club store that's selling in advance, stickers and stuff like that. People are interested in kind of sponsoring the club that way. But specifically for the event, we don't have anything planned this year to charge. In the future, we could potentially do that just to help from catering costs if we wanted to do like an organized meal, which a lot of the groups do out there. But we'll hold off for a while and see how many people we get and see what looks next year for that.
As a club, we are going to be spending some money and offering some free swag along with. We're currently looking for a beer sponsor, if anybody is listening. So we're going to try to make it as much. We're not charging anything or trying to fundraise from this. We're just trying to build it up as an event. And then maybe after this year, we can just kind of build on it next year and maybe create a raffle or something that either get some funds for the club or get some funds for the Rubicon Trail Foundation or donate it to Corva or Cal, something like that. But as far as this year, we're just basically burning up some money just to put on a good event for the people who want to show up.
And that's actually fantastic because, especially here on the East Coast, almost every event there's some charge because they're on private land. They got to pay for insurance or they're paying for, food or catering, those kinds of things. So it sounds like getting it on the ground floor for this, especially on such an iconic trail, would be a really cool idea.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And I would say, too, that this is a public road. It's a county road. So that helps with, kind of organizing events like this.
Sure. So I've already paid for it, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
The citizens of California have paid for it.
Yeah, we continue to pay for it. And as Eric mentioned, the Friends of the Rubicon Trail Foundation do a lot of work to help keep it open and kind of fight the environmentalist groups that are looking to shut it down. Our goal is to be, active in these groups, Corva, Cal4, that are supporting the trails here locally. And that's kind of where we see this event going is kind of helping kind of reinforce the iconic history of the trail and keep it safe for everyone to use in future years.
For the first time or someone who's not been on the trail before, how about maybe let's put it that way. If you've not been on the trail before, what do you recommend the vehicle and how it should be kitted out? We know that, but I'm just thinking maybe for someone new going to that trail, maybe there's something specific that for that trail that would be helpful.
Well, I think for the trail, the more equipped you are, obviously, the easier it is. The less you have, the less you have to rely on the driving and the spotting. But I would say generally for the typical Land Rover, I would say 33-inch tires, full armor, at least one traction aid, like a rear locker would be good. Depending on I have a D2, you really need a gas tank skid because you could avoid most things with your front end, but with the back, there's so many ledges that you just kind of drop off and you're going to be dragging your gas tank and your rear bumper. I think that's a really important piece of armor in addition to the rock sliders. But the full armor is really recommended.
Especially with all that rear overhang on the D2s, you kind of need something under there.
Yeah, definitely.
Sounds like my Series 3 would be better when I'm sitting on the gas tank.
Yeah, okay.
I better start.
There's not a piece of armor that you can get that you won't be happy to have on there, just for peace of mind and let you relax, because with 18 miles of trail, the hardest part of the trail is not necessarily any one piece is that technically difficult, but when you're wheeling so many hours a day, you can't get spotted on every spot. You get some mental fatigue. So that's where damage happens. So it's nice to have the armor.
And John, if you're really thinking about taking your Series 3, you better get going now.
That's what I was going to say. I better start driving now. It'll take me a month to get there.
Or borrow a buddy's trailer and head on out that way.
Exactly.
Well,
right. Exactly.
Well, you guys are always welcome to come out and ride shotgun with somebody. We're going to have a lot of people coming out just for that, just to see the trail. And, that's something that's worthwhile, too.
It's definitely worth it. I know we're hoping to host the guys from Alloy and Grit as well to do the same and to kind of get some pictures and experience it since they've never been out here as well. And so, yeah, we definitely encourage it. I mean, my first time through was as a passenger. And so I think it's a safe way to go. And you still get a great time experiencing it. And you can still help work on your Land Rovers when you're out there. So
because that's what I need to do
on your free time, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, am I what?
I realize you said there's no registration needed or there's a cost for it, but do you still want folks to let you know that they're coming so they can prepare for it? Is there a way to do that?
We are in the process of working through our website landing page, which we intend to have kind of like a check-in, so we know who you are, where you're coming from, and and hopefully that you let us know that. Obviously, if you show up, we will gladly welcome you as well. But the more organized or the more that we can kind of go as a group, the more fun we think it'll be.
Drive-ins welcome.
It's good to know who's coming in case they don't make it, to go looking for them.
Well,
Yes.
we need to tell the beer sponsor how many kegs we need, too.
Alrighty.
All right, so to let folks know more about the event and how to at least let you know that they're coming, where do they go? Is there a website? Is it on Facebook?
We do plan to have a webpage. We just don't have the URL up yet, but you can check the NorCalRovers.org and kind of keep posted there, as well as, all of our social media platforms. We monitor those and kind of keep conversations going. Feel free to reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook. We can get back to folks and direct them on updates as we kind of get the landing page going.
What is the Instagram and Facebook page? Is it just Northern California Land Rover Club, or is it NorCal?
Exactly. It's both. So you can find us in both as well.
The Instagram is NCLR Club, to make that a little easier. So NCLR Club. And the event is Rovicon. So kind of like a play on the Rubicon, but we put Rove in there. So ideally, we would have liked to have that like www.rovicon.com, but somebody already owns that. So we're kind of in the process of figuring out what we want to do about that. But by the time this airs, I hope that we have all the information and a dedicated page for the event on the NorCalRovers.org site.
Well, and if you get it up and running, certainly send us a link because we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, I mean, I hope we have this done by the end of the week, to be honest. The whole idea came up maybe like 6 weeks ago, a month. I don't know, Greg. But we've been but it was such a good idea. And it was like, yes, we have to do that, we're like, screw it. Let's just cram everything in and make it happen. So we're a little behind where we probably should be on some of the things, but I don't think it'll hinder the actual event.
Yeah, it's the series truck of events.
Yeah,
made on the fly by hand.
Yeah, I think
pretty much.
We had the idea early on, maybe earlier in the year, but I think, as most things go, when you start out in the year, everything's kind of like on the wall, and then you realize that all of a sudden it's 2 months into the year and you haven't actually started any of the things you wrote down on the board to get done. So I think that's kind of where this one fell onto my list of accomplishments so far. It's like, I want to get this done this year and a host of other things. This is my first year as the club president, so I had a long list of things I wanted to kind of try and see if we could accomplish. And as every new person coming into a role, and even if it's a volunteer role, you wanted to kind of leave your mark and make something better than you found it, and improve on what was done before you. And so that's kind of where we're going. And Eric also is new in his role, so we're both pushing through together, figuring out how we can bring some additional events to the club and to the region, and kind of make the club a little bit more active in the area with some of the trail maintenance and trail preservation groups as well.
Yeah, this event has sort of evolved since it was conceived. What I heard about it personally, because it was kind of, I would say, Greg and Don's baby as far as the idea of having the Rovicon, is I just thought, I couldn't believe that it hadn't been done before. Like I said, earlier, it was like, as the NCR LR club, trail is in our jurisdiction. It's the most famous trail in the world, possibly. So I do think it is our duty to have an event and have it a good event.
Well, you need to let people know it's not a Jeep thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I hope.
And, I do a lot of events with like Cal 4-Wheel and events that aren't like Land Rover specific rock crawling events. And I'm usually always the only Land Rover there. And people give me crap about wine and cheese and, they're driving $60,000-$70,000 Jeep. So it'd be nice to have a group go out on the Rubicon and show all the other rock crawlers that you could do it in a Land Rover too.
No, it's fantastic on behalf of the entire Land Rover community. If I can speak on behalf of the entire Land Rover community, good luck. I'm glad you're doing it. It's fantastic. And I agree. Why hasn't it been done before?
Yeah, well, hopefully it will be an event that will go on for 10, 20, who knows? Just, some of these Jeep events have been going on 50, 60 years, and I don't see why this would end.
How many Jeep events go on there?
There's a couple Jeeper jamborees. It's so big that they have to have multiple ones.
Okay,
and
that
then
makes sense.
And then you have individual clubs as well.
Yeah, and then there's organized events through Cal 4 and Corva out there that are kind of not vehicle specific, more like Eric mentioned, like you can bring any 4-wheel drive that meets their requirements. And then you do like poker runs and kind of some other organized kind of type events out there where you get to a part of the trail and you kind of earn a raffle prize or ticket. And then at the end of it, you can enter all those and see if you're able to actually win anything from some of the sponsors that contribute to him.
So
drive attendance.
I'm not sure how to ask this question, because I just was thinking of it. You earlier said that the trail is either a county road or off of a county road or a state road. If that's the case, do they close it for these kind of events? Do you have to reserve it? Or is it? Is it very possible that you guys would be there and then you'll have 5 or 6 Jeeps and a Toyota and a GMC join you?
Yeah, the trail is an open road, right? I mean, I guess there's 2 parts to this one, right, Eric? There are some groups that do shut the road down, like the Jeepers Jamboree shuts the road down, but they are moving hundreds of Jeeps through in a 2 or 3 day period of time. They get permission to do that, but most of the other events don't do that. And Eric can correct me if I'm wrong, but you will find other people on the trail, and it's a long trail, and it's not uncommon to see a few hundred people on there over the course of a weekend.
Yeah, one of the coolest things about the Rubicon Trail is not just the trail itself, but the rock crawling culture that is about the trail. So I've gone out there solo several times, and sometimes what you end up doing is you end up just getting behind like a group of a couple guys and just rolling with them and stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if we run into small groups of Jeeps and we just kind of bring them into the fold and we end up running together or something like that. But as far as like where the main event is happening, which is at Rubicon Springs, that is private property that we had already reserved. We will have that space available for the event.
Once again, the event is June 21st through the 23rd. Did I get the accurate dates?
No, 28th through the 30th.
I had the wrong dates. Take 2. So the event is June 28th through the 30th of 2019, because invariably we'll have some listener catching up with the podcast, and they'll be listening in about 3 years, and then they'll hear about this event. And they'll like, no, it took place 3 years ago. So for the new listener who's listening in 2022, you missed out on the event. But it's June 28th through the 30th of 2019 in Northern California. Where's the meetup point?
Loon Lake. We'll start at Loon Lake.
Like I said earlier, what we're kind of planning on doing is staggering the runs because it's kind of a difficult trail, so we don't want to have huge groups. So on Friday night, we will be meeting over at Buck Island and camping, and then exiting in the morning, and then coming together again on Saturday night over at Rubicon Springs. All the information will be available either on our Facebook page or Instagram, NCLR Club, or also you can find it at www.norcalrovers.org.
And we will certainly have that in the show notes so our listeners can check that out. And I encourage listeners in that area to check out the events and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the podcast. This is one of the cool things podcasts could do, which is to let people know about new events and events going on, especially throughout North America. Let's learn more about the club, the NorCal Club. How did it start? How long has it been going on?
It was a group of individuals in the Bay Area that kind of all lived in a similar area and noticed each other and started getting together and kind of doing trips down to Hollister Hill, and then decided to kind of go and actually become a not-for-profit, official not-for-profit company and kind of organize themselves. And then we've been together now coming on 13 years and, slowly grown through kind of word of mouth, through the website, some social media. And we now have, over 100 active members, and we kind of run trails from, all over California. We had groups this year already doing a week in Death Valley during the kind of Easter springtime frame. We ran a group of folks out to Moab before the Easter Jeep Safari events took place. So they were out there in March and did that for a week. We do an annual snow trip in February, usually around President's Weekend. And we get, 20 to 30 trucks to go out there and camp in the snow and try to see if they can make it to the top of Bald Mountain, which is down in that Fresno area you mentioned earlier, Harold. So we know you love that place.
Well, okay.
We do an annual members appreciation event every October, which we've done previously in Hollister, and then this year we're kind of taking it into the Sierras. Last year the club helped run the Western National Land Rover Rally, which was out in Bear Valley area, which was a great success. We had close to 400 people attend, and it was quite a bit of fun. And for 4 days of different trails, and
well, that's a big turnout.
That's huge.
Yeah, it was. It was a great time, and that was kind of managed through a few different clubs. So we had help with the Arizona Land Rover Club, as well as the San Diego Land Rover owners, and then the Southern California Land Rover Club.
That's got to be the largest Land Rover event in North America, isn't it? Because MAR gets maybe 200, 250 now. What's the National Rally get?
I think they're north of 300 trucks at least.
Well, that's bigger than we had. We had about 300 people, so we had about 150 trucks. I think 125, somewhere around there.
Gotcha.
So
okay, still it's respectable. It's still a large size.
Oh yeah, that's a good event.
We have less trucks, but our trails are much better.
We're gonna start the western-eastern side divide.
Here
okay.
we go. Here we go.
So you guys don't understand about Pennsylvania pinstriping at all.
Oh yeah.
Well, we don't worry about pinstriping. We get huge gashes from boulders and granite.
Yeah, that brings up a good point.
Pinstriping is nice.
Yeah, we call them race stripes or earned stripes. But I say that brings up a good point, Eric, too. I mean, about the Rubicon Trail. I think you have to be willing to know that there is likely a good chance of some sort of body damage, right? Likely to slide off a rock and kind of bang a fender or quarter panel into a rock. So we just like to let people know that. So if you have, like an NAS spec Defender 90 that's restored, that maybe this isn't where you want to bring it, even though it'd be super capable on the trail. And then there are folks that don't care, right? That do want to bring those trucks out and enjoy it.
Well, really, at any sort of off-roading event like this, you just kind of have to have the attitude that if you can't afford to just throw the truck away, you shouldn't really be out there in it.
I agree. I've rolled on the Rubicon before and destroyed a vehicle, so I know all too well. But it's also just ruins your day if you're stressed out about scratch or a dent or something.
Right, exactly. And I mean, stuff happens, and while you hope you don't destroy the truck completely, you have to be prepared for that possibility. And if that is not something that's acceptable, then you shouldn't be there.
Yeah, and like I said, there's nothing on the trail that you have to do that is that difficult. There are really hard sections, but most of the really extreme stuff you can bypass. But the thing is, it's such a long trail, and you're going to be spending maybe 6 hours straight wheeling. The mental fatigue can really screw you up. And it's usually the easier stuff that you get the body damage on because you kind of let your guard down.
That's exactly
right.
That's
one thing to keep in mind.
I think everybody has an example of that they've done, where they've done something stupid because of the mental fatigue and they don't pay attention because, this is easy. I'm off the trail now and I don't have to pay as much attention. And that's actually not the case.
Here, hold my beer.
Yeah. Or you get your Series 3 hung up on a snowbank after you're done off the trail and you're high centered and because you were playing around and then someone has to
you got full of yourself. And
exactly.
Yeah.
I said the backstory here.
It was as simple as I've just told you. We were out on the trail here near Ligonier, Pennsylvania, and it was a private trail, and we're on the trails driving around. I'm in the Series 3, and then we're done, and there's some snow on the ground, but the main access road had been plowed, so there was 2-3 foot of snow on the side, and I'm like, we're parking the trucks just to chat for a few minutes before we continued, and I just drove, and then I realized I got high centered. I wasn't, like, oh, it's just going to park it here. It's fine. It was simple as that. And I mean, I wasn't in any danger. It was just, as you said, that kind of fatigue. And then you let your guard down because, oh, I'm fine. I'm on the access road. Everything's okay. And no, you just got high centered. Good example.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us.
That's a good point to think about when you're looking at what kind of Land Rover to bring onto the Rubicon Trail. We definitely think you're capable of bringing it an LR3 or LR4, but given their size and their breakover height, and the fact that you can't get really large tires in there easily, we were kind of recommending that folks try to bring solid axle type Rovers through on this one. Maybe later as we kind of go forward, we can maybe accommodate those people in the LR3, LR4 one to bring them through and kind of run them in a group. But we have had folks go through in LR3s and LR4s, but just the pace that they go through, and they essentially end up having to winch over most of the obstacles just because their breakover clearance isn't as good as some of the solid axle trucks.
So you probably shouldn't bring a first generation Freelander either.
Not unless you've done something interesting to it. Yeah,
you have to find one first, Harold. You got to find one first.
There would be that.
There are 3 functioning in North America.
And none of them belong on the Rubicon Trail.
You could get anything through the Rubicon Trail. It's just whether it's going to be worth the damage or whether you're going to have a good time. And
you can get anything through on the end of a winch, but it may not make it on its own power.
Yeah, exactly. So, you could get an LR3. Don, who, was on a boat and couldn't make it, I think he got his LR3 all the way through. It's just not very fun. I mean, it is slow. It is stressful. You're going to feel bad.
You got to be willing to work for it.
Yeah. So to have a fun event, the minimum requirements that we talked about earlier is really kind of what you want to have. And like Greg just talked about, having a solid axle and having that kind of articulation, that breakover clearance, that's important too.
Greg and Eric, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show and talking about this new event, Rovicon at the Rubicon. We're going to have you on in the future, and we will have a longer, further discussion about you and your interest in Land Rovers and more about the club and about the Western National Rally, because we do want to hear about all those things. But I was trying to get you on the show now because I heard about the events. I saw it on Instagram and wanted to get you on to talk about the event so that our listeners can hear about it and hopefully get to attend. So thanks very much for what you're doing for the community, and thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to say to anybody listening that I do have visions of grandeur for the event. I think that this could probably become the premier rock crawling or off-roading event for Land Rover. So if you guys want to get a cool first annual T-shirt and look like an OG, come out on June 28th to 30th.
Thanks for having us on, gentlemen. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. And one more time, dates and location they can find information.
June 28th to June 30th, so our last weekend in June. And please check out, all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, as well as the norcalrovers.org club site, and we'll have information up there.
The event is called the Rovicon. Kind of like the Rubicon, but with a ROAV in it.
Yeah, and you can follow those on the social medias with the hashtags and all that stuff. So we'll keep information going there too.
You're going to have a dedicated person to do live streaming and live social media during the event?
Not likely with the no television, with no cell phone coverage out there.
That's actually
no satellite uplink or anything. Come on, guys.
No, we're not BF Goodrich. They did bring out a few Land Rovers actually for the BF Goodrich event last summer, and with giant satellites on them just to provide real-time data links for all the press for the tire launch, the KM3 launch. I don't know if you guys have seen those on. I can send you guys some links to those. You might want to post them on your social media account. They're pretty cool. But quite a few. They brought, I think, 3 or 4 Defenders, 90s and 110s out there as kind of support rigs, actually, to support all the Jeeps and Ultra 4 cars that they were doing tours of.
Of course they did.
It takes Defenders to get Jeeps properly supported. Yeah, I like that.
Well, right now we're focusing on the beer sponsor, but if we get that, buttoned up in time, maybe we'll look for a satellite sponsor too.
There you go.
That is actually a good point. You mentioned, so there is no cell coverage for this area. So for folks who are for communication, I take it you recommend CBs, FRS radios, and if you think you're going to call Land Rover Service to get drug off the trail, that's not going to happen, or AAA.
And if you're addicted to social media and addicted to being on your phone, well, maybe you ought to think about that.
It's a good detox
Well,
for
that's
you
one
to
of
come
the
out
good
and join
things
us.
about off-roading.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice but to let it go for a while. But we will be using ham radios. Our standard club frequency is 146.460. So that's kind of how we're going to communicate on trail. But like I said earlier, the Rubicon Trail is very developed. There are bathrooms all over the place, mile markers. There's also a helicopter pad. So if you do get in trouble there, help is closer than you'd think.
Especially with the use of ham radio repeaters. So you can actually connect into the Rubicon Trail from like Sacramento, the actual city, but just via repeaters. So
is there going to be a mobile repeater on site, or don't you need that?
We don't actually need them. There's two that cover the entire Rubicon Trail, and you can hit both of them, and then they're linked together. So
all right.
we can.
There you go.
We can. Yeah.
So you've already got good ham coverage figured out. That's good.
So Harold, the Series 3 is a former communications vehicle. We could turn it into a ham radio operator vehicle.
And I used to run mobile radio stations, so I
You guys could supply the communications and the beer. You guys could really come out.
Yeah, okay. We'll get right on that plan.
Get right on that, yeah. Maybe next year we'll...
But definitely consider flying out, right? I mean, if it's something that you guys can maneuver, we can pick you up at an airport or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, here I thought we were going to wrap up about 10 minutes ago, and we had another good topic about communication, which is a good one. But
welcome to Centresteer. That's how it goes around here.
Thanks very much, gentlemen. Again, appreciate you taking the time and coming on the show. And
yeah, thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
And now on this Centresteer podcast, also broadcasting from Bill Burke's RV, not a trailer. I was told about that. Talking to Charles Bell of the Gulf Coast Land Rover Club. Welcome to the show, Charles.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for your hospitality. We are here at the Land Rover Rally. You were very nice enough to make us feel welcome and give us a hospitality, let us know what's going on. And apparently Jackson is now licking your leg.
Yeah, he seems to be liking my leg. A little salty probably from the sun.
Yeah, he likes to lick. So as I said, we're still in we're in Bill Burke's RV and talking to Charles. The dogs are here, so you may Jackson likes to lick people's legs. He apparently likes the salt. Henry just stares out the window because he wants to go outside where it's a little cooler. Even says Bill has the AC on, I think, like to 72. So that's what's happening. You may hear the dogs. You may hear some music because we are here at the Land Rover Rally.
We are live.
Oh, I like that. We're live from the Land Rover Rally. So, Charles, tell us about the Gulf Coast Land Rover Club. How long has it been in existence? How did it start? And where's it? And I guess what's geographic coverage?
So we started the club. I started the club with my friends Robert Johnson and Matt Johnson. And I think we started in 2007. It just kind of one of those days where Land Rover fans, we got together and it just kind of started from there. We are based out of Mobile, Alabama, and we have members really all through the Gulf Coast area. A lot of members in Florida, given this event here, a lot of members in this area. And Mississippi, Louisiana, some as far as Texas.
Is that the Gulf? So what the Gulf Coast would be the Gulf of Mexico. So
yes.
That would be everything from Florida all the way over to Texas, right?
Pretty much.
Okay, yeah.
Now, most of our concentration is more toward the South Alabama, Florida Panhandle areas. That's where most of our concentration is. But we have 700 members online. I know of one for sure in Australia. Obviously, he doesn't come to any of our events, but
He's invited. He's invited.
He's always invited. He's still, he discusses with us on the forums, and it's just a lot of fun.
That's it. Yeah, good. And so since you said 2007,
correct,
right? And it was just, and it started out with just two guys, I take it, who were Land Rover fanatics.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I came over from New Orleans and moved to Mobile in 2004, and I wanted to start a club because we had a club for a short time in New Orleans, and I was like, I love the Land Rover product. I'm enthusiastic. I want other people to enjoy their vehicles, and I find that they enjoy them more when they actually off-road them, and they get to know them better. They will generally overlook some of the quirks when they get to enjoy the vehicle, and it just started from there.
I take it you have all vehicle types, and do you have represented? I take it any forward controls. I'm just kind of looking for anything interesting, maybe that stands out.
We don't have any forward controls. We have a couple series.
Yeah.
We have some Defenders. We have
lots of discos.
A lot of discos. We have a lot of discos. I know of a couple Range Rover Sports.
Right.
Natalie's being one of them. Nothing like really special.
Yeah.
Per those standards.
Right.
but we have some pretty cool rigs.
Yeah. The person I met, Michaela, she has the Series 3 109, right?
Correct.
She's part of your club, right?
She is part of the club.
That's cool.
Yes.
That's a nice, unique kind of vehicle.
That is a unique vehicle.
And has certainly has an interesting history about it, which go into it another time. But do you guys have events? And if so, how often? Or is this like one of your events then?
This is one of the main events. When Mike Ragsdale did this, this is the 6th annual. And we heard about it about a week before the first time. And I'm like, there's an official event within driving distance, not too hard to get to. We want to be a part of this and help it grow. And we've been coming ever since. So this has kind of become an official event for us. So as many of us can come out here, we do. We don't do any other annual events. But so basically somebody posts on the Facebook page, say, hey, we're going over here. We're going to Eglin Air Force Base this weekend. Who wants to come along with us? You know, some people will see it and they'll go ride. I try to set up 2 or 3 rides personally, and we just try to get as many people to go as we can.
Nice. And do you like meet monthly or like a social gathering maybe? Or?
We used to meet monthly, but it got too difficult with people's schedules. So we don't generally meet monthly. We just try to meet at a club ride. We try to incorporate like a ride in the morning, maybe get some lunch together to socialize and get to know each other, because we often have a lot of new members come in, first time off-roading with us, and we'll go hit some trails the afternoon and then go our separate ways.
Are there trails in the area, or is it public land, or is there private? Sounds like you get to go to some Air Force bases.
The Eglin Air Force Base could be wrong in the numbers, but I believe it's 395,000 acres.
I'm sure.
Or something like that.
Right.
As long as you have a permit and have watched the safety videos so you don't roll over the unexploded ordinances.
Hey, how about that?
Exactly.
Yeah, UXB.
So you watch the video, you get the permit online. It's an annual thing, about $25, and it's just to help maintain everything.
Right.
And as long as you go on the numbered roads, you're legal.
You're good.
And some of the roads can be pretty interesting.
Are they? Were they bombed out or?
No, just washed out roads, roads that they don't necessarily maintain often, and especially after some rains. We get a lot of rain down here. Get some washouts, and it makes it fun. There's a couple of wildlife management areas that we go to. The downside of being a mobile, there isn't much within driving distance of like less than 45 minutes. So if you're going to go, you're going to commit to probably a day ride.
Are there public areas or pay off-road parks? We have some of those up in the the Northeast. I was wondering if there's any down this way. Right.
There is one. It's called Bogs and Boulders. It is about 2 hours north of Mobile. And now it's pretty diverse. It's got a lot of different terrains, some mud bogs. They actually have some rocks, which is pretty rare for down here. And it's a fun park. We try to go up there once a year, just at some random time. The last time we went, it actually snowed, which is pretty rare for down here.
That would be,
It doesn't usually happen.
Yeah, right. And that was in July. No, kidding.
No, we get pollen. Other times of the year, we get pollen.
Yeah, I know. On the drive down, I started to notice that my eyes are getting itchy, and I was like, oh yeah, there's pollen down here. Yeah, because it hasn't started up home yet. The trees are just starting to bud at home, and the pollen hasn't kicked up yet. But it's getting there. So you have your own online presence. You go to various events. So do you go to other events a little further afield? Like, have you guys gone to MAR or SCAR? Or
we actually have a few members at SCAR right now. They decided to take the trip, which is fantastic. Our club is kind of showing our face in other locations. The family and I we went to the MAR in 2009. We've gone to a Solaris event, I want to say in 2010 or 2011. That is probably the only far ones that we've gone to, just because logistics.
Sure. No, absolutely. Yeah, it's tough to travel and take a weekend and go or even a long weekend. It can be difficult to get, and certainly get a lot of people to come out. So what of your members are they more into off-roading, and what kind of off-roading is that? Is it, do they like this area, or do you think they're more prone to other areas where it's a different kind of challenge? I don't want to say more challenging, because everything has its own challenges, but it seems down here there's a lot of sand, and it's generally flat, at least certainly from where I come from. Yes. I didn't see a lot of rocky stuff, rocky trails.
Yeah, the only rocks we have here are brought in for some kind of layering situation. We have to me it doesn't matter what the terrain is. I love all of it. As long as I'm not on pavement, I'm happy. Right. We have a lot of our members that will often long for other situations. But we have a diversity of areas that we're in. We have a lot of people in mid-Alabama, which there are some foothills.
Oh,
and
yeah,
stuff.
I guess there would be. Yeah, right.
So there's some pretty good terrain
It's not too far
there.
away either.
And yeah, a few hours, and you can be in some pretty interesting stuff.
Right.
It depends on who the member is.
Right.
You know, some people like the more aggressive stuff like Scar. Some people like the laid back, go through one, decent water crossing, hit a couple of dry roads, and come back and hang out.
What about North Carolina? That's not too. That's a reasonable distance. I guess from here it's reasonable. Maybe not from Mobile.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like Uwharrie has there's activities that go on there. It seems like April now is Land Rover event months in North America. Now there's like 2 events going on every weekend. It seems.
It seems like it. It makes it hard. You got to pick and choose which one you want to go to.
You do absolutely. Yeah, exactly.
At this point, my heart is the 30-day Sand River Rally is so much fun. It's just a great time. Meeting some friends you don't see but once a year, and it's great camaraderie.
So what's the series of trails down here? I mean, we obviously rode with you today on some of the trails, but are they all like that? And is there more, or is that pretty much what we went on? Was that the extent of it?
There are more. Point Washington State Forest, I forget the exact size. There's a decent network of trails. There are some spots that are a little bit lower, so you get some more swampy areas. Couple of water crossings here and there, depending on the weather. They could be extreme hazard or, a couple inches deep. Especially this area, a lot of sand, maybe some silty mud, but not much more than that.
Does anything go out to the actual beach, or is that all kind of like restricted land?
That's restricted.
Yeah.
There is one beach you can drive on, but you have to go into a lottery system to get a pass.
Okay.
And you have to be an owner of a certain, of that area. You can't just be from Pittsburgh.
Right. Come on down and
get it.
Oh, okay.
You have to
be
live
a resident.
in the area, reside here.
Right.
And still it's a lottery thing.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, interesting.
And then you can only park, and it's only a small area. So unlike my family and I went to St. Augustine a couple of years ago. We got to drive on the beach over there with a 1-day permit. You don't get that option here.
Yeah, I think there's some places in like North and South Carolina, I think, that have the same thing. Well, they'll give you a day permit, and there's certain areas you can drive on instead of doing the lottery system. At least I think so. That's my understanding.
There are, and we've looked at doing some. I drive everywhere, so if we go vacation, I'm looking for an off-road trail.
Right, sure. Yeah, there we go. So the Sand Rover Rally, we have talked to Mike Ragsdale before about the rally, but let's maybe your perspective on the rally and what it's about and what takes place at the rally. If anyone wanted to come down, what should they expect?
They can expect a very laid-back, relaxed, just fun gathering, usually live music. There is some off-roading, not very extreme like you've experienced today, but beautiful trails. The area is gorgeous.
It is, yeah.
And you walk 5 steps from here, you're at the beach, just some of the best beaches in the world.
And the trail rides are pickup. It's just, there's no lead trails. It's just people get together.
Very casual. People get together like we did this morning. Right. Hey, we're going here at this time. Let's go hang out. And it's been like that from the beginning. And it makes it nice. You're not pressured to do a certain thing at a certain time. You can control things a little bit better as far as the rides, and because you get too many people on the trail, it can become very
problematic. Yeah,
exactly.
Especially if you get especially like what happened today. We went down the wrong trail and everybody had to turn around. And
you do that with 50 cars. It's a problem.
That's
a problem.
Out of control.
Mike's been doing this for 6 years. It started off as just to kind of get some publicity for the area.
Was it more of a car show at that point?
It was pretty much like this. You had the car show, and a lot of people would just come and park their vehicles in the morning and just hang out. Some of us like to do the trail ride in the morning, come in the afternoon and hang out with everybody. Sometimes we'll go back out afterwards just because we want to. And then the dogs come by.
Then the dogs go by. All right, Jackson.
But yeah, very laid back, very relaxed, great people, beautiful area. Last year we got stormed on, which made the trails fantastic.
Right.
But it made some of the outdoor activities, less fun, but it's still a fantastic event.
People get together, and there's no registration. You just show up.
No registration, no cost, which is fantastic. You come, you enjoy yourself.
Right.
They don't charge because they feel like you're pouring money into the area. Right. You're eating at the Pizza by the Sea. You're
staying at local hotels.
Staying at a local hotel, you're buying gas. All that stuff brings revenue to the area, and they like to see people. And there's some fantastic rigs here.
Oh, there are. Did you see there was a Defender pickup, but it was a 4-door. That was a really cool rig.
Yes, the 130.
It was a 130. Thank you. I couldn't remember its size. Glad Bill gave that an award for kind of most unique. As soon as he said it
was deserving.
It was, yeah. As soon as he said it, I'm like, yeah, that's the right one. That's the right one. It was a really cool rig. You knew about the Austrians.
Right.
Heard about the event. Someone told them about it, and they're like, hey, we're real close. We'll just come on over. And they showed up, which is very cool. Very cool. And good for them.
We had somebody from the Czech Republic here as well.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There's a couple from they didn't drive here.
Oh, right.
But they're Land Rover owners, and they were just in the area and decided to come by.
Oh, I'll have to track them down. That's really cool. That's nice. So in addition, during the Saturdays, like the main day, which is there's some trail riding, it's ad hoc pickup, and then there's a kind of a car show that takes place. So where are we at? This is
Golf Place Town Center.
This is Golf Place Town Center, and it's like a grassy square, and all the cars are parked on the grassy area and display themselves. And in fact, this is where Bill's RV is at the moment. There's a pre-gathering the night before.
Correct.
And then has that always happened?
That has not.
That's okay.
I want to say last year was the first year they did that. It went well last year, and it worked out well because of the weather. We were able to use the venue again the next day because it was raining. This was the second year that they did that.
And it was nice because pull in, you get some beer, you get some food, really good food, and you get to meet up with fellow owners that had shown up. And just to kind of meet and greet.
And it allows us to talk about who wants to go trail riding, where we want to meet, and kind of work out those logistics as well.
Yeah, exactly. Anything else? And is there anything else that goes? Is that it? So once the car show's done, is that pretty much the end of the event?
That's pretty much the end. I know they're doing there's a completely unrelated. There's a concert tomorrow. Here at the same location, weather permitting. If you're still in the area, you want to come back by, see some live music, which is always fun. Right here on the beach. I mean, live music in the beach. It's kind of hard to beat.
No, absolutely. And there's some really good restaurants in this square area. I checked out at least one of them, and it was really good. It was really good. Well, let's turn ourselves to you then, Charles. How did you get into Land Rovers? I know you have a nice storied history, and I want to hear about that.
Well, I started with Land Rover kind of as an accident. I was working as a technician for Ford, and my brother-in-law at the time was working for an independent. I worked with him for a little while, and then he went to Land Rover New Orleans and said, hey, I need a tech over here. You want to come work for me? I said, sure. So I kind of started working on him to start. And it's funny because I tell people now, when I first saw a Land Rover Discovery, which I had no history of Land Rover before I started working for them, and I thought this Discovery was the weirdest looking vehicle I'd ever seen in my life.
D1, D2?
D1, because I started at Land Rover in 1999. So the D2s were just starting to come in. It was fall of 99, so the early D2s were just starting to come in, and the D1s were still finishing out their production life. And I was like, this is just a bizarre vehicle.
It is, yeah.
And I started working on them, and what drew me to them, if you get a 10-year-old Ford Explorer into the shop, things are broken, it looks terrible, it's barely holding on, and then you get a 10-year-old Land Rover Discovery in the shop, the leather's still in good shape, all the pieces are in one place where they're supposed to be, and I was impressed by just the aesthetic durability of it, just from a natural wear. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, but I'm still kind of a Ford guy still. Worked for him for a while, and then I was going camping with some friends at church. My wife and I were going, and my boss was like, hey, why don't you take this Discovery 1 we got on the used car lot, use it for the weekend. And that was pretty much it. It was a 96 model, white, tan interior.
Sold.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And from that point on, I was like, okay, I need to have a Discovery. I have to have one of these because it rode. It had over 150,000 miles on it. It rode fantastically. It handled great. Of course, I found a few hills to climb. It was a lot of fun to drive around.
Did you buy that Discovery?
I did not. It got sold pretty quick, and I wasn't in a position to do that yet. Right. And I had just bought a 1998 SVT Contour.
Ooh.
Which was a fun car. Yeah. I bought that just before I left Ford. I still wish I had that car. It was a blast to drive.
Right.
Regular Contours, crap. SVT Contour was a blast.
What was your first Land Rover then?
My first Land Rover was in 2003. It was a 1995 Discovery SD.
Ooh, nice.
Hardtop, leather interior. It wasn't a cold climate. It wasn't an official 7-seater because it didn't have the rear air.
Right.
It did have the jump seats in the back.
Okay.
So that was my first one. I immediately said that it needed tires, even though it really didn't need tires. So I put a lift and tires on it pretty early on.
As you do.
Lift, two-inch lift, 32-inch tires.
Right.
Kept the skinnies.
Right.
And it was a beast.
Yeah. And you still have that?
I don't.
Okay. It's moved on.
It's moved on.
Right.
And it's funny story. The guy I sold it to was in the military in Mississippi. And he called me up a week later and said, hey, this Discovery you sold me, we had 3 military Hummers get stuck on the back range by the airfield. And I drove the Discovery around and pulled all 3 of them out.
Whoa, nice.
So it's good. It's good to hear when you hear your old rig doing important things
for important people.
Exactly.
Yes. I always got to get that in. So 97 D1, and then you had that, and I assume there was another.
After that, while we still had that one, just before my oldest son was born, I bought a 99 Discovery 2. I got it cheap because it needed head gaskets and an ABS modulator and the usual good stuff. But as a Land Rover technician, I can do all those things myself. So I picked it up pretty cheap, and I actually still have that vehicle. And I know you guys know about names. The first one was Brutus.
Oh, yes. Right. Good. You name yours. Good.
My Discovery 2, which is still at the house, is Brutus 2.
Brutus 2.
And when we get to my other one, we'll go from there.
Okay.
But so I had the Discovery 2 for a while. I sold the Contour, which I'm still regretting, and bought a leased a 2008 LR2.
Okay.
For my wife. And that was a great little vehicle.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed it. The road manners were incredible. Really good off-road. Didn't do anything extreme with it, but whatever I put it through, it handled it with grace. And so that was a 3-year lease, so we had that for 3 years. And when that was up, Natalie wasn't sure if she wanted to get another Land Rover. She wanted to do something else. And then she calls me and says, I'm sending you an email. And I see a 2003 SE7 black on black. And I was like, ooh, HSE7, black on black, rear air,
06
navigation.
06 is the one that, and you don't want to get an 05. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
the first year. The D3s.
So we got that, and that one's still at the house as well. And then
Nice.
I bought the LR3, the 07 LR3.
So that
was an 03.
That was an 03.
2002 Discovery 2.
Okay, and that is Brutus 2? No.
That is Brutus 2 is my Discovery 2, my 99.
99.
This one has no name. The black one, she hasn't named
Never
it.
named, not named.
Never named.
It's Natalie's vehicle.
Natalie's Disco.
Okay.
That's kind of its nickname.
Okay.
A friend of mine called me and said, hey, I'm trading in my Discovery 3 or LR3. They want to give me this for it. If you'll match the offer, I'd rather sell it to you. And I've been servicing the vehicle for years. I knew what the vehicle had to offer. Knew it needed some work. Not a big deal. I can do that. And so I picked that one up for a song. And that's the one I'm driving now.
And that's name is
Brutus 3.
I'm
Discovery 1,
sensing a pattern.
Brutus 1. Discovery 2, Brutus 2. Yes.
Oh.
Discovery 3, Brutus 3.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And I wanted a friend of mine had an old FJ Cruiser. He called it Buford.
Okay.
And I was like, that's pretty classy.
That's good.
I can deal with that. I wanted something, strong but not crazy. But so Brutus just came to mind, and it's been Brutus ever since.
That's good. You didn't find a good strong British name,
No, Nigel just didn't sound right.
Nigel. Yeah, that's the name I always go to too. Nigel. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it comes up. So so you have Brutus 3 is the LR3. And what year is that?
07.
That's an 07.
2007.
And now you've kitted that out.
I have. Right. It has the Proud Rhino lift rods from Lucky 8. I have 32.5-inch all-terrain tires, roof rack, ladder. I picked up a factory A-frame brush bar for $75.
Oh, there we go. They're nice. Yeah.
Out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah.
Saw it online. I was like, this can't be the price. Called the guy up. Said, yeah, I'm just trying to get out of my garage. I had some friends up there. Said, hey, I'll pay you the money. Can you bring it to my buddy over there? And I'll just pick it up when I come through.
The Rover Underground.
My buddy checked it out.
Right.
Said, yeah, this is a great deal. Send him the money. $75. Got a factory brush bar.
Nice.
So
nice.
I'm happy with that.
Oh, good. Anything else planned for it? Or you do any other additional work?
I want to do rock sliders. Eventually, I'll probably do a hidden winch at some point. I never go out by myself. I'm usually with at least one other vehicle. So recovery is usually not a big deal.
Right.
And around here, we don't do a whole lot that's going to deem it necessary.
Right.
But it's good to have, and so I've been looking at some options for that.
And I get the impression you're probably going to get out further afield and to some other locations that you don't normally go to, and you should
try to.
And you want to be prepared. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
The rest of the Land Rover fleet is we just picked up a 2009 Range Rover Sport for Natalie.
Oh, nice.
And
nice.
It's the Zambezi silver with the ebony interior.
Oh, nice.
Cold climate package.
Yeah.
It's a nice ride.
Sweet one.
It's a nice ride.
Now, does she go off-road or does she take her vehicles off-road?
She doesn't take her vehicles off-road. She usually just rides with me.
Okay.
She will, and she has.
Oh, good.
But this one, I don't want to call it a pavement princess. It's not going to see, like, the trails here, it would have been perfect for her, and she would have not minded that, but don't want pinstriping, don't want wheel damage. So we just, we can do some mild stuff. Her parents live in North Alabama, and they have an 11-mile dirt road to get to their house. So,
perfect for that.
Natural environment, it does fantastic. Yeah. We'll use her for stuff like that.
Good. Well, good. And you take your kids with you.
Absolutely.
Right? And you have two boys, right?
Two boys, Nathaniel and Alexander.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I forget. I'm sorry, which one?
Nathaniel's the 13-year-old. 13.
He was behind the wheel of the 110. So
yes, and Alexander, he's a 10-year-old, and he's a car guy.
Is he? Yeah, he's one that was up on the roof, I think, wasn't he?
Probably.
Okay, yeah.
Probably. That's not surprising. He likes to spot. He was spotting you when you were backing in.
Yeah, he was. Oh, yeah, he was all over that.
He give him a task. He wants a task.
That's gotcha. Yeah, well, he certainly did. He check out the truck because he's certainly welcome to. Okay, good. I wasn't around it all day, so it's tough to know who was doing what. I think I'll leave this part into the podcast, but people should know that Jackson has been licking my leg now for like 20 minutes. Like, come on, Jackson. Do you have to lick everything? I'm trying to.
Your legs will be clean.
Or maybe raw or something. Yeah. I'm not sure.
You will not have any hair.
Any hair, yeah. And I do have hairy legs. Yeah. Anyway, so we should move on. It's just. I think I'm going to leave that into the show too, just so people understand what's happening. Is there something else that's coming up, maybe that you have your eye on? So you have the new Rangy Sport, or new to you Rangy Sport, and you have your LR4, and you have a D2. Anything else coming up?
Nothing right now. I'm pretty happy with my fleet right now. Yeah. If I get anything else, I'll probably be sleeping in it. So,
not your choice. Not your choice, right?
The driveway's a little full,
right?
So I am probably going to sell Brutus too soon.
Okay.
It served me well.
Right.
It's still a great vehicle. It's time for it to go and do important things for other people.
For other people. Yeah, exactly.
I'll probably get rid of that soon, and kind of anxious to see, not that I'll be buying it anytime soon, I'm kind of anxious to see what the new Defender looks like.
Right.
Of course, everybody's talking about it. It's all the hype, seeing pictures everywhere. I am slightly cautiously optimistic.
The pictures we've seen, and actually while we're here, I don't know if you've been paying attention. I actually had somebody email me that the new Defender was seen testing in Utah.
Yes, I saw that.
And then they were looking, and they got the undercarriage, and people were commenting on the undercarriage because it has the control arms are aluminum and kind of beefy, and people are going.
It looks pretty stout.
I think it does. I think it does. And of course it's the same running gear, at least as we understand it to be, of the LR4, or no, I think the Disco 5.
The Disco 5.
I think it's Disco 5. But I also tend to think that they've been testing this whole thing since the D4, in some combination, anyways.
They have been testing this for years. I guarantee
it. That's pretty obvious now. I think it's pretty obvious that they've been doing that. Different electronics and different mechanicals, putting it all together, and then the body is like, we're just going to put this on top of the frame that we've been testing for years, which is smart, actually. Think about it. So how do you define what a Defender is? Is that, since you're cautiously optimistic, it seems to be a topic of conversation among people, where some people will say, that's not a Defender, that's not what a Land Rover is. I don't know, do you have thoughts on that? Is there something that it has to, maybe, how about this better question, is there something that it has to have in your mind to still be equated to the Defender that everyone thinks of?
I think it has to be iconic. And I think that something new can be iconic. But it's going to have to earn it pretty quick. I can't say that it has to have a certain body line or a certain grill or something like that. I'm not a huge fan of the new body styles that are out. The Discovery 5, although it's a neat vehicle, it doesn't have that classic Land Rover look to it. Of course, it's bringing a lot of new owners in, but it's not necessarily us.
I like to call us heritage people.
Heritage people. The heritage owners.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And I'm even lumping the LR3 and LR4.
They have they not moved into the heritage side of it?
They really have.
They have.
You can. It needs to be able to be personalized, because I think that is one thing that Land Rover stands apart. Well, obviously Jeep has been doing it forever, and you can buy Jeep accessories at Walmart, and some pretty cool ones at that. But I think you have to be able to make it your own. LR3s, when they first came out, I went to the launch in Canada. I was like, kind of boring. You put a roof rack, you put a ladder, you put some kind of accessory on it and start making it your own. It becomes something a little more unique.
Well, it's interesting how the Jackson's just been licking up your arm up a storm, and you're just a trooper, kind of just trying to keep talking.
I'm trying to get through this.
You were doing great, I know, and I was like, oh, come on, keep going. And I thought, I'll ask a question, maybe give you a second. It's interesting though, the LR4 Disco 4. Now people see that since the D5 came out, people see the D4 as this. It's very boxy, and when it first came out, I remember everyone saying that's not boxy. It's not boxy. It doesn't have there's no elevated roof line. It
wasn't boxy enough.
It wasn't boxy enough. Yeah, and
it was boxy, but I think there was so much real estate on the side of the vehicle because the Discovery 2 had that indentation all the way down, and it set it apart. It gave it a unique line, whereas the LR3 Discovery 3 didn't have that. It seemed like a refrigerator on the sides.
Yeah.
Until you put like the body side moldings or something like that in to kind of make it a little bit more of your own and just kind of break that line up.
Right.
And I think. Yes, when the Discovery 3 came out, a lot of people were like, wow, that's just not what a Land Rover is supposed to be. That's not what a Discovery is. But the things we did testing them in Canada was nothing short of impressive.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so you were, when you were working for Land Rover, then you helped out with the testing of the D3?
I went to the launch.
Why are you bearing that now? That's we're like, a half hour in, and now you're telling me that. That sounds like really cool stuff.
It was. I got to go to the launch in Quebec, Canada for the LR3. We were up there for a week.
Yeah.
It was stupid cold.
Oh, yeah.
For me, coming from the South. Probably wouldn't be much for you.
What time of year was it? Do you remember?
It was early November.
It can be, that can be cold.
Early mid-November, I believe it was.
Right.
They were starting to put some of their Christmas stuff out. They were getting their curling
ready to go, right? Hockey was in full session.
And so we were driving over snow-covered mountains.
Where in Quebec? Was it Montreal or Quebec City or somewhere in between,
Montreal, I believe.
Was that a Montreal? Makes sense.
I don't know 100%, but I believe it was the Montreal area.
The mountains just up north of there, not too far away. There's a couple ski resorts too.
Right, I think we stayed at one of those resorts.
It makes sense.
And it was a fantastic launch. The vehicles were very impressive.
Did you get to drive one?
I did.
Oh, that would be.
And it was. We were going over stuff that I was looking at, thinking my Discovery 1 would have had a problem with.
Wow.
And we were just walking up it on street tires.
Yeah.
And Land Rover's always been about traction. That's like their, call it off-roading, call it, good manners on road, it's traction. If you have traction, you can get through just about anything. And Land Rover's been very good about that over the years. So
Absolutely.
We got to do that, and that was one of the events I went to. I went to the launch of the Discovery Sport.
Oh, yeah.
I went to the launch of the Freelander, the Sands of Adventure.
Good man.
Those were cool vehicles. I want an SE3.
And I'm not sure how many times people have heard me say this now because I don't know when we'll publish this, but having been at ROAV at Wintergreen, there were two Freelanders there. There was an SE3 yellow.
I saw that.
And then there was a G4 five-door that was there. And the conversation came up, and it was we tended to believe that there are probably more Series 1 Land Rovers in North America than there are Freelanders, functional
yes.
Freelanders. Yeah,
they sold a lot of them.
Unfortunately, they had just some bad mechanicals, and I hear there was the engine the way it was the transverse mount. Yeah, I went through 5 rear main seals in mine.
Yes.
Thankfully, all under warranty, because
that was not uncommon. I can't tell you how many rear main seals I've done.
And you take the engine out,
yes.
right? That was
or the transmission, one or the other. So it got to the point I could drop the whole front assembly down and separate it faster than trying to do it in the vehicle. It was just faster.
You found a good workaround for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I still don't want to do it, but it was doable.
Right. Yeah, I found with that, if you had the right tires on it, it did very well, and it would go places.
Capable.
Very capable vehicle, and it got a lot of crap from people because it's not a Land Rover. There's the start of the, at least as far as I saw it, of the it's not a Land Rover. Well, did you drive it? Did you try it out? Did you check it?
Right.
And I think
what a lot of people don't know is, because of the Freelander, we got traction hill descent control.
That's right. I had the first one had hill descent.
In 1997, in the UK, they had hill descent control. They did it because it didn't have a transfer case. It didn't have a low range. They wanted something to control the speed. So we saw it in the US first on the D2 when it came out. But of course, when the Freelander came in 2002, it had
HTC,
standard on there.
Although I will say I didn't like it. It was too fast.
It wasn't a great system.
It was not. It was too fast.
You could still control the speed on it.
Oh,
it was adjustable.
Not in the O2s, not mine. No. I think
that might have been 04, 05.
It might have been. I think it might have been with the LR2 when that, or maybe it was with
the
that.
LR2 was definitely adjustable.
Maybe it was with the refresh. They had that refresh of the front fascia on the Freelander. But no, mine. I recall was something like somehow it knew you were on road versus off road, and it claimed that it would do, like, if it was on road, it might be 5 miles, but if it was off road, it was like 3.8 miles per hour. It seemed all the same to me, like 10. It was just like
it seemed too fast.
It seemed way too fast, and you're like, I can control this better with the brake, or put into low even. Low, it seemed to hold better.
First gear held pretty well.
Yeah, I thought that was fine, but yeah, that's cool. So you were at all those launches. That must be pretty cool.
Those are a lot of fun.
Those are fun. Yeah, you get to, and you get to meet the folks from the factory that worked on it, the engineers, I assume, and get to talk to them?
We got to meet some, not necessarily the engineers. We didn't see too many of them, but we did see a lot of the driving instructors.
Oh, right. They bring out the LR Experience people. Right.
So I've got to make some really great relationships that way that I still have today, which is really nice.
Probably learn some skills, too, on what to do. Yeah, right.
They know what they're doing, that's for sure.
Those guys do, and there's probably some women, too, that do that. But, yeah, they know what they're doing. Those are cool people. They have cool jobs.
Yes, they do.
They do have cool jobs.
That's what I want to do for a living.
I wonder if they think if the newer trucks are going to put them out of business, but I don't think so. I think that there's still the driver behind the wheel, right?
Right, and there's still some scenarios that the vehicle can't control. We're getting there. I mean, the fact that you can get out of your Range Rover and grab your phone and drive it up a hill is incredible. But there's still going to be situations where it's going to have driver input, right, which makes it a lot more fun for us.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're challenging yourself with a tool, whatever that tool happens to be. In this case, a Land Rover of some sort. You're challenging yourself. Can I get over this obstacle? Can I clear this mud hole? Or and you want to challenge yourself. You want to make sure you can do it. Each vehicle brings different capabilities. Each vehicle brings different deficiencies in its design. Let the tires go and they're bald. Well, that changes the game, right?
That makes it really challenging.
That does, doesn't it? Yeah. So really cool that you get to go to these launches. Did they let you take the family?
I wish. And Natalie, when I was going to Canada, she was like, I really want to go, but it didn't work out. But I try to get them involved, maybe begrudgingly sometimes, but I try to get them involved. And my boys have been off-roading since the doctor said it was okay. Natalie, she's awesome. She's always with me. She takes pictures for me. And for the longest time, it's funny, nowadays you see people taking pictures. It's like, oh, that's normal. When we first started doing like dealer events, when I was first around doing the dealer events, the first dealer event we went to at New Orleans, nobody was taking pictures. They were just there to drive, which is fantastic. But pictures document things. Yes. And then you can go back and look at those pictures and say, hey, look what I did. And then I was in service, but from a sales point of view, you have people taking pictures and you show your friend, hey, look at the picture I took of my Discovery with the water coming up over the hood. I bet your Jeep won't do that.
Look what I did.
Look what I did. Right. And it gives them a sense of accomplishment. It gives them a feeling of, wow, this vehicle is really taking care of me.
Right.
It brings other people in.
Right.
Because it's like, I want to be cool like that guy.
Right. And the money I'm spending on it is worth it.
Right. A side note, there were many, Land Rover, they have their issues, they have their quirks, and there's often some unhappy people, especially if somebody comes in and not understanding, British vehicle. It's got some weird things. You take the good with the bad sometimes. They're extremely awesome, can be frustrating at times. I can't tell you how many times we've invited disgruntled owners for reasons beyond our control. We couldn't necessarily do anything about it, but we said, look, come off-roading with us. We're doing this event. Just come hang out with us. Let us try to make it up to you as much as we can, and just come enjoy your vehicle. Come get used to it. I can't tell you how many times those owners overlooked the little things from that point on,
right,
and was just like, wow, look what I did. Yeah. I got to drive this over here. Yeah, the radio cuts out once in a while, but you know what? I don't need the radio all the time. They're going to work on it. I got to do this last week.
Right.
It brings a satisfaction to it, right. For sure. And I've been fortunate to be involved with a lot of dealer events, and I've actually organized a lot of trail rides and assisted at a lot of dealer events as well.
Back to your kids, because this is something I've noticed in the last, say, maybe 6 months to a year at various events. I see more folks bringing their kids and young kids. Right. Is there an age of which it's recommended you can take a child, a little, or even a baby? I know everyone uses the car carrier, especially here in America, you have to, but they'll put it in their off-road rig and go. Is there some guidelines around that? I mean, I know it's probably more of a personal thing, but I'm kind of curious if there's a recommended.
I'm going to get the number wrong,
okay,
but I want to say once they're a year old, and depending on how extreme, obviously, you go.
Sure.
You're not going to necessarily go rock crawling where you can roll over. But my boys have been going with me definitely by toddler age.
Oh, nice.
Strap them in the car seat. If it was a really extreme obstacle, I would often, because I want pictures.
Right.
Natalie would get out and take pictures.
Right.
And the dogs will bark.
Dogs will bark, especially when another dog goes by.
And so Natalie would get out and she would often, or somebody would hold the baby while I went through the obstacle, and then everybody would reconvene back in the vehicle.
Right.
So, try to be smart about it, obviously.
Right.
But my boys have been going off-roading with me since they were little. That's all they know.
Yeah. And I think that's great, too, because it gets kids involved early. It's a normal part of life, and they get interested in vehicles and interested in off-roading. So that's...
And then they have a dad like me who turns them into Rover freaks. And, they look down at every other vehicle and like...
Of course they do.
This morning we were eating breakfast and Alex says... Dad, a Jeep parked next to us. I said, son, it's okay. This is an open event. We appreciate anybody that takes the rig off road. It was a good looking rig. It's okay. And then a few minutes later, Dad, a Honda parked next to us. So I know I'm creating a monster, but
that's all right. That's all right.
I think it's been great getting to share that with them and letting them. Eventually, my oldest will be driving.
Right.
Off-road driving is great instruction.
Oh yeah.
You get to know your vehicle so well. And so, I'm fortunate to be able to bring my kids along and let them enjoy it.
You're going to teach them to drive stick? You're going to find a manual?
I am going, and that's another reason why I missed the Contour, because it was a 5-speed.
Oh, okay.
And I'm hoping to get a friend of mine is trying to sell a Discovery 1 5-speed, which is pretty rare. Consider it. But I definitely want them to know how to drive a standard. Natalie does. I've been driving a stick since I was 11. It's a good thing to learn for sure.
Right. So Natalie goes with you and takes pictures and helps out, and so she's a trooper, and
she's amazing.
Does she drive too off road? I think
she prefers me to drive because she can do it, but she knows I enjoy it so much.
Right.
And she's there for me, she's just awesome.
Thanks, Natalie. Well, there we go. A shout out to Natalie. Does she listen to the show?
Not yet, but she will.
You'll make her. You'll put her in the car and have to listen.
She'll listen while she works.
There you go. Cool. Very cool. So tell us. So the club is the Gulf Coast Land Rover Club.
Correct.
And do you have a website? Are you on Facebook?
We're on Facebook. Go on Facebook. Gulf Coast Land Rover Club. We're there. We have about 700 members, and it's family friendly. My boys will watch over my shoulder, so I don't like crazy things popping up. And we have some really great members, and everybody keeps it pretty clean. And we just hang out. We show pictures of our rig. Hey, I washed my rig today.
Right.
Hey, I got mine dirty today.
Right.
Mine's half and half. We've had that before.
Yeah.
So it's just, what did you guys do for this problem? Hey, I'm having an issue with this. I want some advice. I'm not at the dealership anymore, but I still have some friends over there, so they'll give the advice from the dealership side, which is great because you had that input. I'm a semi-retired Land Rover Master Tech. I've got years of experience, so I can help them out with that. And it's a great resource, and it's good to, we try to say, hey, we're going to go over here and eat. Whoever wants to come, we've done Sonic nights, Sonic drive-in.
Right.
We're going to get milkshakes. It's happy hour.
Oh, sweet.
Just things like that. Just something to feel like you have a family.
Right. You're part of the community and doing important things within other important people.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Master Tech, I think we didn't touch upon that. How do you, because that's an important thing, and it takes some experience and knowledge to become a Master Tech. What's it take to become a Master Tech?
So one thing is you have to be ASC certified, which is a national thing. It's not
it's not related to any manufacturer, right? It's independent.
It's very
of all
general.
That, right. Vendor agnostic, we'd say in IT.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
Right.
So you have to be an ASC master with L1, which is the Advanced Engine Performance certification, and you have to have so many Land Rover certifications and so many years of experience. It takes a lot to get, and I was very honored and proud to be able to say that I have accomplished this. It was a goal of mine when shortly after I started, because I take my craft seriously and I want to do the best I can. With Ford, I was trying to be certified in as much as I could, and I just tried to carry that on when I came over to Land Rover. And I wanted to do well. I wanted my customers to be happy. They didn't often see me, but I wanted to be knowledgeable. So when they ask me a question, or oftentimes they want to talk to the technician, you want to be able to not say, oh, well, I tightened that thing there. You want to say, well,
the manual tells me do A, B, and C, and you don't know why. You just did it. You went to background and understanding.
And I quickly got into the lifestyle of the adventure side of Land Rover, which I'm an outdoors guy. I like doing those things. And So the adventure side really hooked me in, and seeing the Camel Trophy videos. I'm going through the first Overland book for the third time now.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I've watched a little. You've
listened to the Centresteer podcast with Adam Bennett how many times?
Bennett, twice. Actually.
Twice? Oh yeah,
I've
really?
Listened to it twice.
Oh, cool.
And
he's a trip.
And the guy who restored, Adam Bennett. Tim Slesser. That was a great interview.
Have you listened to the book?
I have not listened to the book. I
highly recommend. I've listened to First Overland as narrated or read by Tim Slesser. It's very good. And David Attenborough, who did the written introduction forward of the book, he reads an updated introduction on the audio version.
I need to check that out.
You do, yeah. Well, remind me. I'll hook you up with the right place, because it's. I think it's like out of Hong Kong or something. It's some weird. Okay. It's not easily findable.
The adventure side of it was unique. It was something different. You didn't get that from other manufacturers. And then you started getting into that, and you start learning. Oh wow, these things. You learn about the history of it and where it was built and how it was built, why it was built, and it's an. I know other manufacturers have interesting stories and some great things, some great vehicles, but Land Rover was so unique, and it's such it's a heartwarming story, the way it's done, and all these adventures that have taken place, and I'm getting to share that with my boys, and they're getting many adventures, Sand Rover Rally, the Mar, Scar, where we go.
Yeah, right.
Hey, there's a dirt road on the side of the road. It's not posted. Let's go see where that goes. Those types of things, it creates memories. It creates a bond, and it's easy to have a bond with the Land Rover.
Charles, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to come on the show. Your hospitality while we're down here for the Sand Rover Rally, and taking time to let the dog lick you while you talk. No one will understand that. You and I are the only ones who ever understand this. Charles, thanks very much. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad you guys came down. It was great to meet you, and it was a lot.
And my buddy Ed.
And Ed.
Ed, yeah. Even Ed.
Sorry, Ed. I'll apologize for that now.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think Ed will listen. And that's the episode for May 2019. I want to thank our guests this month, Eric and Greg of NorCal, talking about Rovicon. If you're going to go, let us know. We'd like to hear about the event. It is going to be the very first, and they hope the inaugural Rovicon taking place in Northern California on that storied trail of the Rubicon. And also thanks to Charles Bell of the Gulf Coast Land Rover Club, talking about the club and how he became a Land Rover addict. And also, thank you to the One True Packs for his continued production support. Visit our website, centresteer.com, to listen to previous shows and for show notes, which have links to stories discussed in today's show, including Rovicon. We're part of the 4x4 Radio Network, and I invite you to check out the other 4x4 related shows at 4x4radionetwork.com. You can connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can directly support the show at patreon.com/centersteer. If you're not a subscriber, I highly recommend that you do so you get the show automatically. I personally use Overcast on iOS. You can use other podcast applications, but that's the one I use. I like it a lot. It's really good. You can show your support for the podcast with a t-shirt or sticker. Go to our website and click on Store in the menu item, and it'll take you right to the right page. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed show number 74. We'd love to hear from you and what you're up to in your Land Rover. Until next time, I ask you to share the show with one other Land Rover enthusiast.
You may now resume your important things.
All right, come on, Jackson. Come on, Jackson.
I know I sweat a lot, but
over here, brother. Over here. Sit. Okay, good talk.